ethos, isn't it? So maybe it's not so much personality, but in terms of Ronaldo's achievements and the big games he keeps coming, the last, what was it, the quarterfinals, semi-finals and final, unbelievable.
Yeah. The contrast, of course, in terms of their perception in the public, Matt, and you touched on that as well. Messi seems to be all round a more likeable player as far as the public is concerned. Do you think it's that intensity that Danny was talking about that's driven Ronaldo to get to where he's got, because he's needed to be that intense? That manifests itself in the way he composes himself and acts?
Oh, without a doubt. I don't think there's any doubt of his intensity as an individual and to strive to be the best he can be. I think he'll look back in his career and he'll think, I was the best that I could be, and there's no doubt in my mind about that. As respects to him working on it probably more than Messi, I agree with what Danny said. Ability-wise, Messi's probably got a more natural ability, but I still remember playing against Ronaldo for Portugal under-20s when he was at Portugal under-21s and I was playing for England under-21s, and he was on one wing and Quaresma was on the other, and he was frightening then as well. You know, he's obviously worked and improved season on season, but he did have ability at that age as well, without a doubt.
Who do you think is going to have a longer career out of him and Messi?
Of course, a tough one. I'd probably say Ronaldo, the way he works, but again, he's you know, he puts it on social media, what he does at home, what he does to recover. Messi, not really that way inclined, is he? So he might be doing the same. Messi might last longer, but I'd say both of them will be around for a good few years yet.
It does open up the question about being a role model, and we were chatting about it, Matt, before we came on air. I guess, Danny, you can frame it that there are two components to being a role model on the field and the attention and focus and diligence that someone like Ronaldo has applied to get to where he's got, but also a role model off the field, and how important, if at all, that is. Should any athlete for that matter, be held accountable and be a role model because of their status in society? So let's start with the latter. Do you think that footballers do have a responsibility to be viewed as a role model and behave responsibly?
I think you do now, more and more, because of the way football is showed globally compared to when we started, for example. There's so many kids who look up to the best players now that you can't help but feel some sort of responsibility to the way you conduct yourself and behave. That's not to say you're not allowed to make mistakes and play with passion and do things that you regret, because that happens in any sport where, you know, there's adrenaline and there's passion for the game. So they can't be perfect. But overall, I think Ronaldo and Messi have conducted themselves pretty damn well, to be honest.
On and off the field? On
and off, yeah. I mean, Ronaldo's a bit more whingy and a bit more aggressive in terms of his, demeanour on the pitch, a bit more... I use arrogance. I shouldn't really use that word. It's the way he is, isn't it? He's not... He's a bit... When you watch him play and play against him, he's not particularly likeable. But off the pitch, he's supposed to be a great lad. Don't know him, but he is. But people I know do know him, say he's a great lad, and that's fine, because you can be a bit of a idiot on the pitch, and I know a few, and I might have been at times. I don't know, but the responsibility is definitely there. Yes, for those guys. I mean, Ronaldo and Messi are so many people's hero, and both deserve credit. I mean, I can't really think of too many negative bad stories about either of them.
Well, I guess there are, particularly Messi in the tax situation, of course, that's hung over him a
his
little
dad,
bit.
Wasn't it? But yeah, I know all about tax stories. Trust me, not everything you read is always true. But I think yes. But 12-year-old kids don't really look into whether his image rights were put in a bank account in Gibraltar or in Spain or Brazil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more about what you do on the pitch and how you conduct yourself in terms of the obvious behaviours, the normal things we look at, and both of them, incredible. I mean, one little thing, that's all I can think of, maybe.
The level of celebrity, and Danny was suggesting that Ronaldo off the pitch, irrespective of this fictitious or this projected persona, he's meant to be a pretty down-to-earth guy, as much as he can be in that situation. A friend of mine followed the Portugal squad during the 2014 World Cup, and Ronaldo, he said, was very polite, no airs or graces, there was no issues with him, but he was undoubtedly, even in that setup with other big stars in that squad, in his own little bubble with his entourage around him. It's inevitably going to be when you're a megastar. He's one of the most famous people in the world.
Superstar. Yeah, exactly. He's a superstar, and I do think it's beneficial to him. I'm not, I think there's small sections of the media in the UK that like a scandal and will go fishing for stuff.
Yeah.
He's in Spain, him and Messi, and so I don't think they're necessarily interested in that too much. So I think that helps him in many ways as well. But again, as far as we can see, and I'm sure that is the case, he is the perfect role model. And as Danny said, there are so many kids that look up to both of them.
There is an issue in the States in particular with the NFL when a player has been accused of something off the field, but hasn't been found guilty, but accused of it. And usually when it's a more significant crime that they've been accused of, the league steps in, the team steps in, and they're not allowed to play until that issue is resolved, which suggests that there is an accountability in terms of players being role models in society. Do you think that's fair, Danny?
No, I think that's ridiculous. I think innocence or proven guilty is generally the way to treat any person in anything. Because punishing someone without the knowledge that they've done something wrong is just not fair. I can't see an argument for that. I'd hate to see that in football, that just because somebody gets accused of something that they get withdrawn from. Well, we've seen the opposite, haven't we, to be honest? And then obviously when they do get found guilty, then they're taken out of that environment. And that's the only way I think normal society can work, and especially in football. Because football as well, you've got to remember, as Matt was just alluding, and even when I started out at Liverpool, there was stories going on all the time. I mean, I had a few back in the day, and less than 50 or 40% probably of those stories were true.
Right.
As in the content. It's a bit of a rumour that gets sugar-coated, and they used to be able to print it. They can't so much now, especially, after all the tapping up stuff and all that. I mean, the press are a lot more careful how they can't just throw stories out there. But
there's a different enemy now. Well, not enemy, maybe the wrong word, but there's a different problem and challenge for players with the accessibility of the public and social media. And wherever you are.
But you know what? A really quick story. Social media is massive now. But when my first year or two at Liverpool, I was still living in the same area, my same friends, socialising in the same places, got myself in a fair bit of trouble. Not always my fault, but I took myself out of the environment in the end, and I moved away. Only 20, 30 miles into the sticks a little bit. Best thing I ever did. You have to make a choice about what you want to do. So if you're going to be in a restaurant, bar, nightclub, horse racing, wherever you're going to be, people now have the ability to video you and snap you instantly. So you have to behave. If you want to spin on your head and drink shots and act like a lunatic or whatever you want to do, you've got a nice big house, or you can hire a hotel room with the money. You can do or a hotel floor. You know what I mean? That you have to just start thinking. The problem is the penny drops for certain players at different ages.
I'm really interested in that story and the strength it must have taken to make that move and to break away. How old were you when you made that call?
Probably about 22.
And you look at the situation with Ross Barkley and what happened to him a couple of months ago when he was in a bar, completely unprovoked attack on him.
Oh, I've taken a few of those.
Exactly. So and again, he's got to have a look at himself, even though it wasn't his fault, and think, do I come away from this situation? And you need good people around you.
But then you hear stories time and time again. Oh, what's a player that shouldn't be in that situation, put himself in that situation, and the human being.
Exactly.
Yeah, but just quickly on that, because what we used to do then, when I used to go out with, say, Stevie or Cara and some of the young lads, you'd end up planning where you go and getting some security, getting people sort of flash or whatever, but your VIP area, someone looking after you. There's a roped off bit. It's just so you can enjoy your evening, and then you don't get the trouble. That gets frowned upon, doesn't it? Because, look at them flash dudes over there. But actually, you have to be that way to protect yourself from the idiots. Yeah.
We'll get in there. We'll keep on this. Footballers as role models and the world that surrounds the modern-day footballer next on Kickoff.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide.
He gets to it. Oh, my goodness me.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
My sporting life. Defining moments from TalkSport.
David Ginola.
I remember the first away game we played was at Sheffield Wednesday. I scored my first goal, and on the way back, the lad said, well, let's go have a drink in town and celebrate. And David, we're going to show you how Newcastle, what Newcastle is all about for the festive approach.
Yes.
And I remember going down the quayside and people throwing themselves at my feet. And I remember the guys laughing because they were watching the game in the afternoon and they saw me. They were singing in the street, Gino, and I was, what was going on? What was that? And it was
People literally threw themselves at your feet.
Oh yes, they were kissing my feet. They were kissing my feet, and I said, "Come on, stand up, please, don't do that, don't do that." I was really shy because all this passion, all this, devotion about just you are wearing the zebra shirt and you are part of the history of our town, our club, and I'm saying that because we don't have such things in France.
Legends of sport recall their major achievements with Danny Kelly. My Sporting Life on Talk Sport.
Tomorrow morning from 6 a.m, it's the Sports Breakfast. Danny Kelly and Mickey Quinn in for that one. They'll be speaking to former Liverpool and England winger John Barnes and the former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. And a reminder, straight after that, Mark Saggers hosts full commentary of England's second game in the Champions Trophy as they take on New Zealand in Cardiff. Whilst from 1 o'clock tomorrow, TalkSport 2 brings you live action of the French Open. Let's get some sports heads with Craig Wakeling.
Thank you very much. England's under-20s are through to the semi-finals of the World Cup. That's the first time they've reached the last four in 24 years. They beat Mexico 1-0 in their last 8 tie in South Korea. Dominic Solanke scoring the only goal of the game. They'll go on to face Italy on Thursday. Now, in TalkSport 2's Champions Trophy commentary match, England's Group A rivals, Australia, are 83 for 1 after 16 overs, chasing the 183 set by Bangladesh. The match is currently being delayed by rain. Finally, Andy Murray will face Kai Nishikori in the quarterfinals of the French Open. The world number 1 beat Russia's Karen Khachanov in straight sets at Roland Garros. All the latest is on the website talksport.com.
The British and Irish Lions Tour of New Zealand 2017 on TalkSport and on TalkSport 2. The Blues versus the British and Irish Lions, live from Eden Park, Auckland.
Back to Barrel, out to Watson, goes to the line and will score.
Kick-off Wednesday morning, 8:35 a.m. on TalkSport 2, with more expert pre-match build-up and big game anticipation that is safe for human consumption from 8. Live and exclusive coverage of the entire British and Irish Lions Tour on TalkSport and on TalkSport 2.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game. They've done it! Kick-off on TalkSport.
We'll have some Lions chat a bit later on this hour. Russ Hargreaves, part of the TalkSport team out in New Zealand, joins us before the end of the hour. Warren Gatland ringing the changes, it seems, after that difficult first match of the Lions Tour. So Russ will fill us in on all that. Matt Etherington and Danny Murphy alongside me, Nat Coombs, in the studio tonight. We're talking about players as role models, both on and off the field. Of course, there's no doubt about Ronaldo on the field. I think off the field he has a mixed reputation. I think it's diplomatic to say, and as Matt pointed out a bit earlier on, he is a master technician when it comes to using social media and self-publicity. He's very much brand Ronaldo. And social media, of course, such a significant challenge for players to tackle now in terms of how they go about their business and their private lives. Danny, you were telling a story about when you were starting out in 21, 22, and you made a conscious decision to move away from an area and I guess from a group of friends and acquaintances because you knew you had to prolong your career. That must have been an incredibly difficult thing to do.
Do you know what? It wasn't. It was necessary for me to get to the right place to get in the team and crack on with my career because I'd had everything easy really to that point till I got removed to Liverpool. I'd never had to work tremendously hard to get into the crew team and progress there, and the move happened and I kind of just thought it would carry on happening. You know, you need a bit of guidance along the way, and you have it, but you got to make mistakes yourself. And then one too many things happened to me, and you know, some more serious than others. And in the end, it was a kind of like, well, I've got to do something.
Did you realise that yourself though, or was the benefit of an older pro, a bit of both?
Yeah, a bit of both. So I moved up towards the Wirral. Strangely enough, without knowledge, I ended up living in the same road as Jamie Redknapp, which was fantastic for me because he was super pro and helped me a lot in terms of, you know, getting sorted in terms of mentality, and we travel in together. And well, he had a bad injury at the time, but that helps, being close to someone like that who'd come through as a young lad and experienced all that before. And then, of course, Houllier was the main reason. He was inspirational for me and gave me the guidance to get me in the team and give me the right targets and the right training exercise, all that. But, yeah, it was tough because you have to lose people along the way. And that can be... That can cause you issues in itself because people start thinking, oh, who do you think you are? You don't come out and you don't do this, you don't do that. And you have to be quite selfish and ruthless. I mean, I still had a hardcore of my best mates I'd grown up with, you know what I mean? They're always there and still are now, but you do lose some people along the way and you have to kind of cut yourself off from certain environments that can come back to give you a bite now and again.
And as you get more successful and more famous, I guess that entourage increases, at least the ones that want to be close to you.
Yeah, it's a mixture. You say entourage, the wrong word really. Hangers on or people who want to be your mate for the wrong reasons, and people who want to take advantage of you as well. But they don't just come in the obvious forms. You know, they can come as financial advisors, they can come as agents, they can come as lads in the pub. It can be a multitude of ways that you can get manipulated, and you do learn the hard way sometimes. But yeah, being out of temptation of a big city, or even a small city for that matter, helps because, you know, it takes a while to get anywhere. Having older brothers help me as well, giving me advice. And then, of course, being at Liverpool, people like Redknapp, people like Mark Wright. Don't know if you remember Mark Wright, the England centre-half. He lived locally down the road, went out with him for lunch a few times, great with advice. Rob Jones, who came from Crewe, ironically, and was at Liverpool at the time. So senior players are the ones who can help younger players more than anybody else. And I think the way football is now is great for that because most senior players who are at the top level now are good pros and look after themselves well. You know, you got to remember when I first went to Liverpool, it was still a drinking culture to, you know, going out with the boys. And, I mean, Matty had that back in the day as well, I'm sure, at Tottenham for probably longer than I did. But you want to be one of the lads, so you go, you know, like it's hard when you go to a club and you want. How do you say no? You know, you just think it's normal, and then you have to listen and make your own choices, and that's what I did. So.
Well, Danny talked about life in the big city as well. Matt, of course, at Spurs and West Ham. I mean, you know, they don't get much bigger than London.
No.
Was that a significant challenge to
It was different. Obviously, a young lad coming up from Cornwall initially and moving to Peterborough when I was 12. I was just solely focused on becoming a footballer. That was the be all and end all for me. And then moving to Spurs, again, focus was trying to break into the first team. Then I got to West Ham and started playing well, and I kind of got a little bit comfortable, and that's when the gambling crept in, etc. And I love living in London, still love living just on the outskirts now. But at that time, towards the end of my time at West Ham especially, just like Danny said, he had to remove himself from, you know, just move outside a little bit. I had to move out of London. I had to get out of the area. Things were getting on top of me. I was getting into bad habits. I was going to the dogs far too often and mixing with the wrong people. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me, that move to Stoke. I had 3 or 4 fantastic years there. Tony Pulis was really good for me as well. He's renowned as a disciplinarian. He was definitely that. He just took me under his wing and helped me. So that was definitely the right move. And obviously now I live back down here, but I'm obviously in a lot better headspace. But you know, it just happened, and I knew it was the right thing to do, and I'm glad I did it.
The papers get their teeth into stories. I love doing that, and you suggested that earlier on that perhaps one of the advantages that a player like Ronaldo has is that the tabloid media are perhaps less have a less voracious appetite for that kind of story than perhaps their British counterparts, which is a big problem, of course, for British players in this question of being a role model.
No, exactly. I do think that is a factor. I think in Spain, you know, I don't know this to be exactly the case, but I assume that they're a little bit more lenient in Spain.
Well, especially Madrid players.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, you have a different kind of intensity because you got marker and you got, you know, everything on the field is scrutinised.
Football, the intensity is huge.
Yeah.
But I think the personal issues, I think they tend to let a little more go than they do here. And I do think, I'm not saying all the media, I'm saying there's a certain section of the media that like to go digging and like to get some scandals. And look, no one's perfect. We're human beings, you know. I think they see, you know, your Rooneys or your Ronaldos as robots. You know, they've got just as many problems as the bloke next door. Albeit, yeah, they're on fantastic money. They're huge. You know, they're going to be sound for the rest of their lives financially. But you know, still got, you know, you close that door behind you when you get home. You still got your own problems, and they're no different.
Rooney and Ronaldo are often compared, of course, because they played together, a similar generation. They have both achieved a huge amount. Ronaldo, it seems more, but I was having this conversation last night on the show I was doing, how absurd it is when you look at what Rooney has achieved as a player.
Yeah,
and yet
exactly,
there are a number of people that suggest he maybe hasn't fulfilled his potential, lived up to the level that we expected.
Yeah, well, probably in the major tournaments for England, he's not produced. I'm sure if you asked him, he's not produced what he wanted to produce. But again, look at his record. England all-time goal scorer, Manchester United the same. He's had a sensational career by anyone's stretch. So, but I just think we got a thing in this country where we like to criticise sometimes, and Rooney seems to be the one that we like to go for more often than not.
Why isn't Rooney perceived as the same kind of role model that Ronaldo is, for example?
I think it's a statement that actually it's hard to take that statement in, because by whom? I suppose you're talking about the English media. You're talking about kids on the street. What?
I think a combination of the two. I think that
he's played in England his whole career, so therefore the media will have gone for him more than Ronaldo's ever had to face, which is I agree completely with, by the way, especially for Madrid players who are protected a lot more over there. That's common knowledge. But I think Rooney's overachieved in terms of a young Scouser from Huyton. You know, who wasn't given much of a chance, really. You know, as kids growing up, you know, it was a tough area to grow up in and to avoid temptation and be disciplined. And 16, 17 is in Everton's first team. Then he moves to United, so young, takes that responsibility on his shoulders. Hat-trick on Champions League debut, goes on playing game in, game out, hardly ever got injured. In the England team, I mean, I played with him on his debut against Australia at Upton Park. You know, he was a kid, but he was strong and he was mentally tough. And we talked about longevity earlier and how long he's played at the top level and produced. Now, the England thing's completely different for me. It's not about him. That's about the England team, the systems we've played.
But I do think there's been a couple...
You could say that about Scholes,
yeah, I think there's been a couple of times, just most recently, the Iceland game, where you look to him.
Yeah.
You know, just to do something, either get around the team or just produce a moment of quality. And I'm not criticising him as a player. He was.
Yeah, you need your best players to stand up, like Gerrard was in a way, but even he couldn't do it. Lampard couldn't even. You know, like they're talking about two of the best midfielders we've ever seen in Europe, because we just didn't have the system or the confidence or what the belief in the. I never judge players. Success and capabilities and class based on international football, personally. I know some people go, that's ridiculous, because I think 90% of international football is a doddle. You know, you're playing friendlies against... Friendlies don't mean anything. You're playing qualifiers most of the time till the big tournaments against pub teams. The odd one or two tough game. Then you get into tournaments and you only play decent, maybe one decent team in your group, and then if you get through, two or three decent teams. So you're telling me because a player wins a tournament and another one doesn't, that he's more successful. I can't have that. I base it on club level and longevity. I mean, playing for United and winning Champions League, or playing for Madrid and winning Champions Leagues and La Ligas, that's success. That's for me, anyway.
You look at what they've both achieved, and I take your point completely. Compare and contrast Rooney and Ronaldo, as Matt pointed out, the media component of that is significant. But do you think that if somebody is on the fence about it or has an undecided opinion, the media exposure, the negative media exposure that Rooney gets in this country affects their opinion of him on the pitch?
I think with some people, maybe. Yeah, of course. I think that happens generally in life. You know, your perception of what other people's someone talks about somebody else in a certain way, you kind of think, oh, you read about someone with negative stuff. You know, it's normal for that. So I personally don't, because I've been in that world and I know it can be manipulated and, you know, sugar-coated or made worse, I should say, not sugar-coated. So I think he's had some bad things happen, of course, like most players, you could, over the years. But what I would say about Rooney is, physically, he's never been Ronaldo, 6'2", built like a, you know, Ronaldo's tall and elegant and he adds a bit of muscle and power to that. All of a sudden, he's a flying machine. For Rooney to play season in, season out, the amount of games he did, he was doing something right. I mean, he must have been disciplined enough to play the amount and score and keep producing those performances. You can't say he was for 10, 12, 15 years, or whatever it's been, 12, over a dozen, that he's not been looking at, because he played all the time. He had the odd injury here and there, but always out there giving it his all. So he's obviously disciplined himself to a certain level.
Yeah.
But you can't be... I could never be as quick as Gerrard or Ronaldo. You know, I just couldn't do it. But you can only be the best you can be with what you've got physically.
We'll talk more about life in football, life after football with Danny and Matt after 8 o'clock. In particular, and both of the fellas have transitioned into the media. But what about players that don't do that? They don't know what they're going to do after they've hung them up. What about players that, as Matt said earlier on, that's all he wanted to be from the age of 12, probably younger, a footballer? What about the ones that get to 18, 19 and don't make it? What do they do? What support is there in the game for players like that? We're going to get into that in a lot more detail after 8 o'clock. We're going to chat Lions next, though. Russ Hargreaves, out in New Zealand as part of the TalkSport team, joins us in a moment.
Download the Talk Radio app and get the biggest names in British broadcasting, wherever you are, whenever you want them. Download the Talk Radio app and get the new big thing in British broadcasting, wherever you are, whenever you want it. Listen live. Get Paul Ross when you're on the road, and Ian Lee wherever you may be. Download the Talk Radio app for free from your app store now.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide.
It gets to it. Oh, my goodness me.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Virgin Radio is back with classic tracks and new music.
Start your weekday from 6 a.m. with me, Edith Bowman, at breakfast.
I'm Jamie East, here to get you through your busy morning with interesting guests, entertaining stories. We've always got room for something unexpected.
Hi, I'm Kate Lawler here every lunchtime. Make sure you save room for me at your lunch table.
Hello, I'm Matt Richardson on Virgin Radio to get you home with a smile on your face.
I'm Tim Cocker, here in the evenings when work ends and life begins.
Find Virgin Radio at virginradio.co.uk. Get the app for your smartphone or retune your DAB radio. Check getdigitalradio.com.
Summer holiday, no more football for a month or two. Golf and rugby on a summer holiday. Red hot radio for me and you. For a month or two. You'll hear the lions roar down under. We've got the Champions Trophy for you. Open golf from Royal Birkdale. There's Wimbledon and Silverstone too. Wimbledon's my personal favourite.
Talk Sport brings you a massive summer of sporting action, including the ICC Champions Trophy, Wimbledon, the Open.
And of course the Taekwondo World Championships in Japan. Hi-ya!
This summer on Talk Sport.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game. They've done it! Kick-off on Talk Sport.
Gets over another 22. He's desperately trying to offload to Alan Wynne-Jones. Can't get his arm free. It's back to Farrell. Out to Watson. Goes to the line and will score. Cuts inside one. Gets around the second. And the Lions have the first try of the 2017 Tour of New Zealand. And they lead once again. 51 minutes on the clock. Anthony Watson's try makes it the Provincial Barbarians 7, the British and Irish Lions 11.
Yeah, it was a tough day at the office for the Lions on their first game of the New Zealand tour. Talking about that now and how they're regrouping after it. Delighted to say that TalkSport's Russell Hargreaves is out in New Zealand and joins us now on Kickoff. Russ, how are you, mate?
Not too bad, thank you, Nat. How are you keeping, guys?
Yeah, we're good, very good. Let's talk in a minute about what Gatland's done to change things up, but I want to key in a little bit more on the game at the weekend because we've got to put it in perspective. And I was on air over the weekend, and a lot of people were getting, I think, a little bit carried away about what was the first game of an incredibly grueling tour with players that aren't used to playing against each other, 2 days or less off the plane. It was always going to be quite a sluggish start, wasn't it?
It was. I think it's the fact that this was by far the weakest lineup that the Lions will face, and I mean by some considerable distance, and the fact that they kind of struggled across the line at 13-7. You're right, having just got off the plane a couple of days earlier, and we were certainly feeling the jet lag in the TalkSport team, and we'd been there one day more than these kind of guys. But there was just this real lack of cohesion, wasn't there? And just this kind of feeling that, my God, if this is going to be a battle, what's it going to be like in a few weeks' time? But as several people have said, there is this one get out of jail free, I think. And don't forget, it's a big 41-man squad. Everyone's going to be rested and rotated over the coming weeks, and everyone will get their chance. And we just hope that with training and with everyone just getting themselves properly aligned and properly ready, things will fall into place. At least they won the game, and at least they had a good defensive workout as well, because crikey, they were under the cosh for big chunks and, managed to not ship tries at key moments, which is something.
I want to talk about the logistics of a tour like this, because firstly you're hearing criticism from some quarters that why is the team having to play a game so soon after landing? Why didn't they get there earlier? That's just not possible, is it?
No, because of the Premiership and Pro 12 finals and the European Champions Cup playoff, they were at the weekend before, so it would be very hard to get there any earlier.
There was a piece in the Observer this weekend looking back at the 2005 tour, the ill-fated Clive Woodward tour, where the preparation and organisation was unprecedented, better than anything anyone had seen before, but yet the tour itself, despite all of that, was disastrous. Now, it's a long time ago. Tony Blair was still in power, I think, the last time the Lions were over in New Zealand. What's changed? What lessons have been learnt from last time around, Russ?
I think what's really important is, I know it sounds a little bit kind of a sub-issue, but it's a very important one. It's how the Lions are perceived over here and how they kind of perceive themselves as a touring party internally. You've got the professional and the amateur eras of rugby really clashing here. And it's a beautiful thing in concept to have four nations all suddenly coming together at the end of the season and with limited preparation going to the other side of the world and taking on one of the world's best teams. In this case, the world's best team by a distance. Obviously, they rotate between South Africa, Australia and New Zealand every 4 years. And in concept, it's madness, isn't it? Years and years ago, it worked beautifully when everybody was an amateur, and it was much more of a kind of jolly occasion in some senses. It was still a passionate and incredible series, but it fitted into that kind of calendar far better than now, where preparation is down to the minutiae, where every moment you've got needs to be spent getting ready for the huge challenge that lies ahead against this fearsome opposition. So I just think the perception now is to be much more of a travelling party again, to engage with the public, to engage in various local communities. And this was another issue quickly. Before this first game in Fangray that we've been talking about against the provincial Barbars, the team spent that day stopping off at various schools, hospitals, old folks' homes, checking in. And Warren Gatland actually alluded after the match that it was all too much and maybe they should have just focused on getting up here, getting that game done and dusted, and then dipping their toe into the community. They didn't. It's the way they did it, and I've spoken to John Spencer, the tour manager, at length about this since, and he said, you know what, you're possibly right, but we are setting our stall out to be a proper engaging party. Everyone's feeding off that here. Everyone notes that this Lions squad under Warren Gatland does care about being a much better, wider representative of the Lions, and I think it's key, but it didn't help that game, and it's certainly an issue that will need to be balanced and balanced correctly over the rest of the tour.
Talk us through the process of how Gatland gets to his starting 15 then. I mean, how many of that 15 for the first test has he got clear in his head, and how many spots do you think are up for grabs?
I think there's still a few up for grabs in terms of the first test now. So the way it works, we've had that one opening game where obviously 15 players played and 8 more were on the bench. Tomorrow evening, our time, tomorrow morning, your time, live on TalkSport 2 on this occasion. It's match number 2 against the first of the Super Rugby franchises, so the big teams that play in Super Rugby down here. There are 5 New Zealand-based franchises. We're playing all of them at various points. The first is arguably the weakest, the Blues here in Auckland, where we are now. They're still not bad. They've won 7, drawn 1, lost 6. I think if memory serves with their games so far. They've got Sonny Bill Williams with a late fitness test, admittedly is one of their star players to look forward to. So what he's done is he's picked a whole different 15 for this game out of his 41-man squad, and the bench is a combination of players who either haven't featured yet or who did start that first game. And then we head across to the South Island, to the toughest of those franchises, to the Crusaders in Christchurch, who've won every single game this season. Their squad is a mini All Black squad. They're allowed to field all of those All Blacks in that third game as as well. And Warren will then play all the other players who haven't featured yet in the first 2 games, plus a combination of a few who have. And the idea is then that he'll have seen every single one of the 41 players start a game. Some also have another cameo off the bench as well. And at that point, he'll start to really decide who he thinks is going to make it and who won't. He's got some ideas, I'm sure, already, but what he's trying to do is keep an open mind and judge properly after seeing everybody at least once. So beyond that, we'll get a clear idea, I think, as we build up to that first test at the end of the month.
Well, let's hear from Gatland. He spoke to the media a bit earlier on about those wholesale changes that Russ was talking about for the match against the Blues.
We laid down a stall and a few things that we wanted to achieve on Saturday. We disappointed with certain aspects, but completely new starting 15 for Wednesday, and they get a chance to go out there and make a statement.
Your thoughts on the team? It now means that only 3 of the squad won't have had an appearance after this game now.
Yeah, I mean, that was always part of it, that everyone got to start in the first 3 games. So there's, it's not the appearance thing. It's the new 15, and then probably another 11 will start on Saturday against the Crusaders as well. So, and that was always a part of the plan, that everyone got to start in the first 3 games. And the fact that guys come off the bench, that's one aspect, but it's about giving players an opportunity to put the jersey on and start in these games.
Let's speak about the captain. He's taken a lot on this tour. He's the choir master. He's made a lot of speeches. Is this a reward for the efforts that he's put in?
He's only made 1 speech. I think it was a logical choice for us in terms of looking at the team and the starting 15. The fact that Ken is captain the Scarlets this year and won the Pro 12. I know that he wasn't involved in the last 2 games, and given his experience and international experience and leadership and the impact that he's made on the squad in the last few weeks, it was an easy decision for us to make.
Warren, the Blues have named their team today with All Blacks in the lineup. Is that an indication of how much of a step up this game is?
Yeah, I think it's their stronger side they put out. They made a lot of changes for the game in Apia against the Reds, and if you look back at the strength of their squad and the fact that Pierce Francis has gone off to England, it's probably, apart from him, it's the strongest team that they could put out. So yeah, they've got some real quality individuals that are going to be that we have to take care of, but we're excited about the game. We're looking forward to it.
Russ, Danny, can I just ask you?
Hey, Dan.
How you doing? Can I ask, it might seem a silly question this, but I'm trying to compare it to football in a way. You're asking a group of players who generally don't play together from, the different countries here, to come together, train for a limited time, and then take on one of the best teams in the world who always play together, know each other inside out. I mean, it seems like, I suppose I compare it, say, well, if, like when we did the Olympics, if you pick a team from England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, and then you go and play Brazil or Germany, whoever the world champions are, and expect to beat. I mean, you're clutching, aren't you, really? I mean, is that why we don't tend to do well there?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and it goes back to that point we made earlier about the professional era as well, when it's just all the harder when the preparation is so spot on. And you know what, we've talked to so many former All Blacks, former Lions, you name it, on our various shows that we do out here and all the various people that we meet, and pretty much everybody says if they can somehow pull this off come the second week of July, Danny, it's going to be the greatest achievement in professional rugby history. Professional rugby's been going since about the mid-1990s. If they can do it, it would be just this Herculean achievement to do it. Warren there talked about Ken Owens, the captain for this game, and what I would say is Ken, who's a hooker for Wales, he's 30 now, he's finally got his chance to play in a match like this and on a tour like this. People like this, Danny, grasp this opportunity and they wear it with such a badge of honour. And there's an extra 10 or 15% that the Lions do give purely because of the opportunity and the rich pedigree of this jersey. I mean, the Lions came down here and won in 1971. It was one of the greatest achievements of the amateur era, and that kind of history, that kind of momentum, that kind of belief needs to be invoked again, and they're doing their damnedest to try and do it, but it's going to be blooming tough.
Yeah, I get that, how much it means. I wasn't doubting that. I'm just I'm looking at the tactical side of it, and all the effort and commitment in the world doesn't create a relationship like Beckham and Neville, like Duff and Robin, or whoever, you know what I mean?
Italian defence ever.
Yeah,
you know.
And therefore, this whole concept of combinations is very, very key. To have these 3 games, guys, to test out different players who play together. We've got all Welsh halfbacks, for example, in this game. We've got an all-Irish centre partnership. We had all Welsh back row in the first game, trying to work out who is going to operate together as a cohesive mini-unit within the team, and having almost a series of mini-units that work together in a broader collective. Because in theory, you do have the best players to pick from, and you're spot on. It's getting the best out of them. And just very quickly, tactically, this concept of Warren ball has been a big story over here the last few hours, because Warren Gatland, the head coach, has won a fair bit during his career, particularly with Wales, with the Waikato Chiefs here, with Wasps back at home. He's always perceived to have this quite negative style of rugby where he packs the team full of big hitters who crash through, gain yards, but sort of variety to style, and it's been brought up by the media increasingly here, often by the New Zealand media, I think, to try and rattle Warren, and he finally bit and got pretty upset about it last night, I've got to say, at that same media conference. And he said, we've got finesse, we've got variety to our game, we've got attacking players who will change the game plan, who will evolve and try and do things differently. That will be key as well. Can Warren Gatland change what the Lions do when needed to try and win? Because to beat New Zealand, you've got to have loads of different tactics to try and do it and evolve in game, as England have learnt to do under Eddie Jones.
Russ, give us a number, percentage of chance of winning it. Just a number, don't explain it, just a number. You're out of time, come on.
10.
Nothing like optimism for the
there's a
TalkSport
chance
crew.
then.
There's a chance, maybe.
Find out how they get on 7 o'clock on TalkSport 2 Wednesday morning. The British and Irish Lions, live commentary of Auckland Blues versus the Lions. Thanks, Russ. Look after yourself.
No worries, guys. Always a pleasure.
Enjoy it. Remember, TalkSport's coverage of the British and Irish Lions brought to you by Audi.
The British and Irish Lions Tour of New Zealand 2017 on TalkSport with Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand, but he goes wide!
He gets to it. Oh, my goodness me!
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Want seller warranty? Buy refurbished tech on eBay and save up to 50% versus new. eBay. Find your thing.
All by myself. Don't wanna be. I'm back, Mr. Alexander. Back? What? Didn't even know you'd gone. Movies are better with two, which is why only comparethemarket.com customers get 2-for-1 cinema tickets with Meerkat Movies. Qualifying purchase required. Tuesdays or Wednesdays, participating cinemas. Standard tickets only, cheapest ticket free. One membership for 12 months, conditions apply.
The Alan Brazil Sports Breakfast on Talk Sport with the Ford Ranger. It's the breakfast show that doesn't compromise on delivering the biggest names from the world of sport.
That's the Alan Brazil Sports Breakfast every weekday morning from 6 a.m.
The Alan Brazil Sports Breakfast. Weekday mornings from 6 on Talk Sport with Ford. City streets, motorways, country roads. Wherever work takes you, our Transit Ranger vehicles will take you in comfort. On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Talk Sport.
Plenty more to come on tonight's kickoff just after 8 o'clock. Danny, Matt and I are going to be getting into what players do when their playing career is done. They can all transition into the media. What kind of support is there for footballers? What about players who are whose careers are cut short? Dean Ashton will join us a little bit later on as well. And players that never even got there in the first place, 17, 18, 19-year-olds cut. What do they do next? What kind of support and mechanics are in place for that? So that's all coming up in the second hour of kickoff. Time to get some news and sports headlines first with Craig Wakely.
Thank you very much. Coming up, more details emerge about the London attackers, and in sports, bad news for Chelsea.
Talk Sport.
Police have named 2 of the 3 men who carried out the terror attack in London on Saturday night. One of them, 27-year-old Pakistani-born Karam Butt, was known to police and MI5 and had even appeared in a documentary called The Jihadi Next Door. His neighbour, Michael Membos, says he was a big part of the community, although concerns were raised.
What we noticed is that he was speaking to the kids. He was speaking to the kids about his views, and the kids were saying, the kids were reported to their parents.
The other man, 30-year-old Rashid Radouni, wasn't known to authorities. Meanwhile, London's mayor has told a vigil for those murdered that the terrorists will never succeed in dividing his city. Sadiq Khan also praised the emergency services for their response. The former Newcastle midfielder Cheick Tiote has died aged 30. He collapsed during a training session with his club Beijing Enterprises. The Ivorian spent 7 years in the northeast before moving to China earlier this year. Former teammate Rob Elliott has paid tribute, calling him an absolute warrior. Meanwhile, Dwight Gale says his thoughts are with his family. Now, Jeremy Corbyn's slightly changing his tone after earlier backing calls for Theresa May to quit over police cuts. The Labour leader says he was simply voicing what is deep anger among people who've seen 20,000 police officers lose their job. The Prime Minister, meanwhile, insists that counter-terrorism policing budgets have been protected and the government has funded an increase in firearms officers.
Talk Sport weather.
With ATS Euromaster. Relax. With a huge range of tyres available to suit any budget, you're in good hands.
Rain for most of the country tonight. It'll be quite windy as well. The low, 9 Celsius.
Talk Sport. Sports update.
The Chelsea winger Eden Hazard will miss the start of next season after having surgery on a broken ankle. The Premier League champions say the operation was a success and they expect him to be back in training in around 3 months. He was injured while preparing with Belgium for an upcoming World Cup qualifier. Now, it'll be a completely different British and Irish Lions rugby union team for their second match of the tour in New Zealand on Wednesday. Head coach Warren Gatland's made 15 changes for the match against the Blues in Auckland. Wales hooker Ken Owens has been named as skipper. Gatland says everyone's on trial for the opening match with the All Blacks.
The plan always was to, I said, give everyone a start in the first 3 games and give everyone an opportunity, and then start thinking about perhaps towards the Maoris game, looking at a couple of combinations that might be what you're looking at for the first test.
Back to the football, and England are through to the semi-finals of the Under-20s World Cup. That's for the first time in 24 years. They beat Mexico 1-0 in their last 8 tie in South Korea. Dominic Solanke scoring the only goal of the match. They'll now go on to face Italy on Thursday. In TalkSport 2's Champions Trophy commentary match, England's Group A rivals Australia, aged 3-1 after 16 overs, chasing the 183 set by Bangladesh. The match is currently being delayed by rain. And finally, Andy Murray will face Kai Nishikori in the quarter-finals of the French Open. The world number 1 beat Russians Karen Konozov. Klachnov in straight sets at Roland Garros. Latest is on the website, talksport.com.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game. They've done it! Kick-off on Talk Sport.
You're listening to Monday Night Kickoff here on Talk Sport. Danny Murphy, Matt Etherington alongside me, Nat Coombs, in for Sags tonight. And in this hour, we're going to look at what players do when their careers are finished, their playing careers are finished. When they know that their playing career is coming to an end, how do they move forward? What support is there? Some players maybe have their eye on the next phase way before then. The players can't all move in to the media like my 2 guests tonight. So what other options are there? We're going to chat to Bradley Allen in a little bit because, of course, we're focusing there on players that have already made it and have built a big career out of it. What about players that don't? Young players who get disappointed, that get cut and don't end up having a career at the ages of 17, 18, 20, 21. What happens to them? Where do you go when your career ends, even before it has begun? And then the midway point between that, Dean Ashton, terrific player, of course, a former teammate of Matt, wonderful player whose career was cut short just as he was entering his peak period. How do you deal with that? How did Dean deal with that? He's going to join us later on in the hour to talk about that in more detail. But we're going to start with my studio guests tonight, and both of whom, you both had a long, successful playing career. At what point did you realise that it was coming to an end, Matt?
Probably just before I retired, to be honest with you. Just before I said I'm calling it a day. I didn't expect when my contract was up at Stoke that I would be calling it a day in November of that same year, but I'd gone to West Ham. There was not much interest in. I thought I'd get at least a Championship club when I left Stoke, albeit I didn't play a lot the season before, and that didn't happen. And then I've still got good friends at West Ham. Sam invited me in. I trained with them for a couple of weeks, done really well, and then I hurt my back the last few days, and Sam's seen it, and it was in a practice game. And he said, no, I think they brought Alma Fontano in then, and I thought I had a chance. After the first week, he was talking about offering me a new deal, so that was a blow. And then Ian Holloway contacted me and asked me to go to Millwall with my allegiance to West Ham was quite a difficult one, but I knew within a day there, I trained them for a day, and I'd been trying to keep myself fit in between. This was October, and I left West Ham late August. And after that first day, I knew I got into the car. My back seized up, and I genuinely struggled to get out of the car when I got home. So I thought, this isn't great. Spoke to my agent, spoke to my missus. They both said, look, keep playing as long as you can. Play in League One, play in League Two. And if I'm honest, my ego was bruised a little bit, and I knew my back was giving me a lot of trouble, and I knew that I wasn't the player that I previously was. So I called it a day. I made that decision. Looking back on it now, it probably wasn't the right one. I probably could have played in League One or League Two for a few more years and really looked after myself, and obviously managed that a little bit better. And then that's it. It's all you've done since you were 12 years old. It's gone.
Suddenly, this void that appears. Obviously, injury had a significant part to play in that decision. But so you probably had some inkling that maybe the end was coming. But when did you start? Did you start to think about what you do next with any kind of seriousness while you were still playing?
No, and that was foolish of me. I'll be the first to admit that, very foolish. But I still genuinely thought I had 2 or 3 years left in the game.
Right.
And I was thinking that way, but I wanted to keep on playing, basically.
So you're planning on that kind of thinking process towards the...
Yeah,
you thought you
I
had
probably
2 or 3
was,
years left.
And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I really, really struggled with it. My missus would say the same. I wasn't nice to be around. I was very, very grumpy. I'd just sit there'd be days on end where I wouldn't even get changed, I wouldn't even shower, I'd just sit and watch the TV, not even watching it, just staring, because I had no purpose in life anymore. I had no get up and go. I was gutted that my career was over.
Angry about it?
I wouldn't say angry. Like I say, my ego was a bit bruised, and obviously we're in a very ego-driven business, and that was bruised. And I just really, really struggled, and I think I struggled for a good 18 months, and I come out the other side, and I really missed it at the start as well. Missed it hugely. Some players don't miss it at all. I missed it. I missed the day-to-day routine. I missed the training. I missed the going in with the lads and all that comes with it. So they were really tough times. Extremely privileged to do what I did, but when it's gone, it gets you, definitely.
Danny, what do you miss most about playing?
Match day. Just match day. That's all I ever missed. Training, didn't miss. It's hard, you're coming to the end. I mean, mine was probably a year less than I anticipated, because I had a 2-year deal at Blackburn, only stayed a year. It was a bit of a strange year. We had 5 managers in a season, and anyway, the decision to quit was because of the lack of decent enough offers, really, from a footballing point of view. Financially, it was nothing to do with that, really, at the time. And I was similar. I mean, I'd done quite a bit of media while I was playing, so I knew there was some options. I mean, it went better for me than I anticipated, but the media initially didn't fill any void for me. It does hit you like a sledgehammer. It doesn't matter how many players tell you and how many people try and give you a heads up on play as long as you can, get ready, think about it, but you just don't. You can't think that that's going to change. It's routine. When to eat, what to eat, where to be at what time, what to wear, with the boys, playing, plaudits generally, fans wanting to be around you, people wanting to interview you, ego massage, the adrenaline match there when you win and play well, or the opposite, going home, thinking about it, analysing it, putting it right. All that stuff goes at the same time. Not bit by bit, all gone. And I was, for quite a while, probably a year or more, in a real bad place. I mean, I was really struggling. Like you, the missus would verify that. And some. But I did have the media, which helped in terms of the longer it went on and the more work I got, the more I had to focus on watching games, thinking about it, the tactical aspects. So that gives you a focus.
You started that while you were playing.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Was that...
Accident. Yeah, I just waffled when I got interviewed, and people thought, "Oh, he can talk. We'll see if he wants to come and do some TV." So I found it reasonably easy to talk about football because I love it and I watch it anyway. Some players don't watch it so much, but I tend to watch it all. So you kind of have a knowledge of something you're passionate about. And then when I kind of got myself together and started thinking, you're young and you've got to crack on and be there for your kids and be better. I found golf, which I'd never been a golfer really. I'd had the odd round charity game here and game with the lads, but wasn't very good. And all of a sudden I found myself practicing 6, 8, 10 hours a week, 1, 2 lessons a week, playing every chance I could, which I still do now, by the way. And it really gave me a focus again.
Right.
So it wasn't as disciplined because you can do it, well, you can't do it when you want because you've got kids and family and work, but if I wanted to, kids were at school and I wasn't working that day, I'd go up the range and I could do 2 or 3 hours, you know what I mean? Just trying to... The big difference was, of course, that football was natural. I was naturally good at it. And, I was given something that was just there. Whereas golf, as Matty knows, it's technical. It's not natural for me to hit golf balls at, with draw, with fade, all that. So it was a challenge.
Both professional athletes, so compared to most of us,
yeah,
it's
true. You've got a head start. I mean, I started on about 18.
Right.
And that's not a bad place to start. But the thing that... It wasn't just the golf in terms of the sport that replaced football for me. It was competitive golf.
Right.
So playing in competitions, playing for money. I know that sounds... but it's true. Something that... There's a target. I've got to win. Yeah. And for your pride.
Gets the juices flowing like the football.
Yeah, well, yeah. And also, if you're 4 of you playing and you win against good players, I mean, that's the great thing about golf course, handicap systems. No other sport, really, that you can play against someone better than you and beat them, if you like, in terms of that much better than you. Anyway, so back to the point, that became a real focus for me and a real kind of help in what I was going through. And then of course, you have a responsibility, I felt then, to try and look at other players, friends of mine who were nearing the end, and to try and converse with them about what was to come, because there isn't a handbook and there isn't much help. And I've had this debate on another show, and we were trying to find what if someone said, give me an unlimited budget now to go through all the professional clubs and say, look, players need some help when they're finishing, because I know a lot of lads who go through it, and I've been through hell myself, right? I wouldn't know the best way to get into their heads to make them understand what they're going to go through.
Right.
I don't think there is a way.
I'm not sure there is.
I don't think there is. I've still got plenty of friends that are still playing, and I'm telling them exactly what you're telling them. Just be prepared. It's not easy mentally more than anything. And, I can see it's going in one ear and out the other. Yeah. So it's hard, very hard.
Unfortunately, the perception is of a lot of people, Joe Public, is that, you got a few quid.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the problem there?
Money doesn't make you happy.
What's the problem? It's like you can still drive a nice car and you got your house paid for, whatever. It's not about that, right? It's. I mean, by the way, on that, financially, when you finish and you start actually looking at what you've got, where it's gone, and who's been dealing with it, that's a whole different ball game. But anyway, that's secondary to the emotional, which is something I've always done since I was 4 years old. You can still play for fun, of course. You can still play, but not to where you were at. And it's a really difficult subject to get your teeth into, because there are players it's happening to every season, and I'd love to be able to speak to them and try, but I honestly don't think the penny would drop till it happens. It's one of those. It really is.
That's something really interesting you said about, I think there's a misconception when you hear about a player retiring and you think, they played from 18 to 35. You've been playing the game from 4 or 5, and particularly if you got to the level that you two both did, jumping over all these hurdles to get to the very, very top. It's your whole life that suddenly isn't there anymore, and you have to fill that void. We're going to chat to Bradley Allen next, a Spurs Academy coach, because both Danny and Matt, of course, made it to the very top and had very long and successful careers, but there are a whole lot of players that aren't that fortunate, aren't that lucky, don't have that level of success. Young players who, I guess both of you played alongside for a number of years, breaking through the ranks, and they fell by the wayside because only the elite can make it through to the pros and to the very, very top. So what happens to those players when their dream ends? We're going to chat to Bradley about that next.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide.
It gets to it. Oh, my goodness me.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Text Jeff to 70004 and help Prostate Cancer UK save men's lives. Normal text charges may apply.
This June, if you test drive the Qashqai, Duke or X-Trail, Nissan will give you an extra £650 off. That's up to a massive £2,900 on a Qashqai at only 4.99% APR representative. Yes, Nissan will give you money off, just for test driving our best-selling crossover range. I know it sounds unlikely, but that's what it says here in this script. I haven't read it wrong. I'm a properly trained actor. I've done Shakespeare and telly and hundreds of voiceovers. Search Nissan offers if you don't believe me. Nissan, innovation that excites. Nissan Finance, 4.99% APR representative. Offer excludes Visia grade. Subject to status over 18s. Order and register before the 2nd of July from participating dealers only. T's and C's at nissan.co.uk.
Mid-morning radio is now bigger, better and faster than ever. A sports broadcasting legend comes to Talk Sport.
Join me, Jim White, tomorrow morning from 10 on Talk Sport.
No flim-flam, no fiddle-faddle, nothing but the facts and football.
The big names and the big stories from the world of sport.
Jim White.
Let's do it.
Tomorrow morning from 10 on Talk Sport with Wix. Let's do it right.
Talk Sport.
And it's in!
A diving header at the end of a 50-yard run.
From the root to the tip.
Talk Sport.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game. They've done it! Kick off on Talk Sport.
You're listening to Monday Night Kickoff here on Talk Sport. Danny Murphy, Matt Etherington alongside me. We're talking about what happens when playing careers finish. And, of course, both my guests on the show tonight have very successful careers, yet they found that transition incredibly difficult. What about players that never made it to the top, that didn't get the opportunity to do that, didn't quite make the grade? What happens to them? Well, our next guest will shed a bit of light on that. Bradley Allen, the Spurs Academy coach, delighted to say joins us now on Kickoff. Bradley, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, gents.
So Bradley, let's talk about those players, and we were just chatting off air. I guess there's a distinction in terms of age, right? But let's concentrate on the players that, from the age of 8, 9, are starting to take it really seriously, thinking they can make it, and all the way through to 17, 18, they think they've got a chance of making it as a pro, and then they're cut, and there isn't anywhere to rebound. They fall out of the professional game. What framework is there in place for 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds like that?
Well, I think the talking point here is obviously the narrowing of the pathway as these young players who go into the academies, the more talented ones at such young ages now, they have the dreams, the aspirations of reaching the promised land and playing at the Premier League. But as the guys know too well, that challenge is becoming increasingly difficult, with the global brand of the Premier League now, and the top players across the clubs that are now on our shores, playing and showcasing their football skills. I think the clubs themselves are certainly improving, their education of these young guys along the way, and for the more academic boys within the academy setup, there is that opportunity for further education and support. So they do have some sort of fallback if it's not to be, and they can't quite get to the highest level.
What kind of academic support is there? Because that's and it's an obvious challenge, right, for any individual who's being told and has to think and has to get into the mindset that I can make it to the very top. So it has to have a complete focus really on playing to stand a chance of making it to the top in the competitive environment that you've talked about, which has got even harder and harder over the years. What kind of academic support are they given? What kind of responsibility do clubs have in that respect?
Well, there are some courses in place. I think it varies across the clubs in terms of actually some school their young players and put them through their GCSEs, and then they obviously go into the clubs on a full-time basis as scholars, and then for the better ones, sign professional contracts. As I say, for the more academic boys, there's the opportunity to have staff that will come in and support them, maybe on A-levels, and even those that maybe do move on and depart. I think if the clubs have got good staff in place themselves, some ex-players as well, they can give them guidance, and maybe they can go on and go back to university and further education, do some degrees, and even come full circle, because the size now of the academies, there's different departments within. You know, you've got the sports science, the medical, you've got coaching itself. You know, the PFA helps support ex-players if they go in that direction as well. So there are a number of factors there that I think the clubs are definitely improving on helping these young guys.
Bradley, we were talking on a show a few weeks ago. I don't know what you think of this idea, but you know, there's a lot of chat about players who finish going on to, you know, try and do refereeing courses, and that would be beneficial in terms of the fact they've got knowledge of the game. But someone talked about, you know, when the lads finish and they're not going to make it, and they're 18, 17, 19, whatever, if there was a programme set up for those lads, like you say about going on the coaching courses or the physiotherapy courses or sports science and stuff like that, for those lads who have been in the game a long time and at professional clubs, just because they're not going to make it, they've still got a great knowledge of playing football and what goes on the pitch. Some type of pathway into the refereeing world for them, a bit like the coaching. It doesn't mean you're going to be a Premier League referee, or it doesn't mean you're going to manage in the Premier League just because you do a coaching badge. But it might be something that younger players might go for if there's some sort of funding with it, of course, you know, because they're not going to have the funds to do it themselves with the money we've got in the game, just to add another branch to the options to stay in the game.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea, Dan, you know, and any real area, you know, our club itself at Spurs, you know, led by John McDermott, he's done a fabulous job in trying to sort of give these opportunities to our guys, you know, social life skills, different experiences, even being able to do like job interviews, because you never know, you know, they could drop out and they have to retrain and go and interview themselves, and all really that they've ever thought about is just striving from a younger age, just to first and foremost become a professional footballer, and then that opportunity is then lost. And that change into a new world, a new avenue can be difficult for some to redirect and focus upon.
Bradley, talk about the inevitable challenge that you're going to face, and that any young coaches or coach of young players is going to face when you have to break bad news to a player that they're not going to make the grade at that club. That must be, you know, one of the toughest parts of the job.
Well, yeah, you know, I've initially started, you know, just over 12 years ago at Spurs on an under-14 group, and now I've gone up one age group to the 15. So I'm in between that 14 and 16 age bracket, which is quite important. You know, that's the first year that the boys are undertaking their GCSE. So, you know, we endeavour to support the parents and the boys the best that we can in terms of them achieving and maintaining their focus on their schooling and education. But also we have to, you know, try to encourage the boys to be the very best that they can. And if it's not to be good news and they're not to be retained at our own club, we try and then give them the chance to then get fixed up and stay in football itself and get them to understand that. There's no failing in that, because everybody does take a different route, and sometimes knockbacks along the way are the makings of some of the better young players.
We were talking in the studio earlier, Bradley, about how difficult, and understandably so, it is to get through to young players, even players, you know, when they're grown up and in the game, because it's hard to concentrate on anything else but football, because it's so competitive, and because you've got to have such a myopic view of it to succeed in it. So you can understand that even if you put all the right frameworks in place and encourage all the right things, you can understand why a player at 14, 15 whose dream and heart is set on going all the way, it just goes in one ear and out the other with the best intentions in the world.
Yes, I think that can partly be just association more than anything with some of these big clubs. You know, both the guys will know many now have quite wonderful, brilliant training facilities. up and down the country. You know, the training grounds now are incredible for these young guys to come in and use 2, 3, 4 times a week. And they're very privileged, very lucky. You know, they're classed as our elite young players. But I think therein lies your importance of your staff. You know, getting ex-players in who have been on that journey, that can build these relationships with these young guys and help them along the way. You know, whether they're suffering from an injury or, you know, a loss of form or even, you know, like he mentioned, the bearer of bad news, and you're saying that they've got to start afresh somewhere else, and you're hoping that your words of wisdom can really support and help them.
Bradley, appreciate your time. Thanks for the insight. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bradley.
Pleasure. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bradley Allen, Spurs Academy coach. There's an interesting quote from Richard Dunn that I'm going to get into in a bit, talking about the setup at Everton, and then by no means unique in terms of how they manage their young players and the intensity and focus on kids as young as 5 and 6, and what the clubs are doing in terms of managing that development of player at that age. So we'll get into that in a bit. And I'm interested in your experiences as well, fellas, in terms of all the players that you grew up with, that you played around when you were 14, 15. I bet there are stories for both of you of the one you thought, if you had to make a call, would definitely make it that didn't, and vice versa. So interested in those stories as well.
Just quickly, that day he talked about, you'll remember it, Matt, I think. You do your 2 years. It was scholarship. It was called a YTS back then.
Yeah.
So at the end of the 2 years, there's a day where your youth coach gets you in one by one and tells you if you're being taken on or released. It's an unbelievably tough day. I don't know if they still do it all in one day that way, you know, because it was literally 1 in, 1 out.
What
one
are the
in,
numbers? I mean, how many?
Well, they used to say it was 85, 90% failure, but I mean, it's been more than that now. Yeah. I was fortunate enough to get a pro at 17, so I didn't have that horrible day, but I was there when my mates did.
Yeah.
You know, and the different faces, they had an idea, some of them, but some of them were on the fence.
Yeah.
It's horrendous to deal with, that must be it.
Seeing lads in tears, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Uncontrollable. So.
All right, we'll get into that next on Kickoff.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide!
He gets to it. Oh, my goodness me!
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Good DIY stores nationwide or at McCulloch.com. McCulloch, the power to get the job done.
The life of a van driver, a life of surprises, a life we chose without compromises.
We're a bit different, more than just a van. Not all bacon sarnies and right arm tans.
Days unique, sights ever-changing. Freedom, flexibility, jobs wide-ranging. A life on the road, one without strife. We're van drivers. This is our van life.
Live your van life in the new multi-award-winning Toyota ProAce. What van light commercial vehicle of the year 2017? On contract hire at £199 per month. Toyota, always a better way. ProAce Comfort Medium 1.16 95 DIN HP. Available on contract hire at £199 per month over 3 years. Initial rental £1,194. Business users over 18 only. Excluding VAT of 20%. Conditions apply.
My thing? My abs. They're big on Instagram. Well, they were until I dropped a dumbbell on my phone. Anyway, I need a replacement. 12 megapixel camera for maximum muscle definition. But my budget is lower than my body fat ratio. So, you know what? It's got to be refurb.
Russell's thing. It's clearly a refurbished smartphone from eBay. That's as good as new with 12-month seller warranty. Buy refurbished tech on eBay and save up to 50% versus new. eBay. Find your thing.
Tomorrow morning from 6 o'clock, the Sports Breakfast, Danny Kelly, Mickey Quinn will be chatting to John Barnes, Steve Harmison, amongst others. And a reminder that right after that, Sags is hosting full commentary of England's second game in the Champions Trophy as they take on New Zealand in Cardiff. Let's get some sports heads with Craig Wickley.
England's under-20s are through to the semi-finals of the World Cup, the first time they've reached the last four in 24 years. They beat Mexico 1-0 in their last 8 tie over in South Korea. Dominic Solanke scoring the only goal of the game. They'll go on to face Italy on Thursday. In TalkSport 2's Champions Trophy commentary match, England's Group A rivals Australia are 83 for 1 after 16 overs, chasing the 183 set by Bangladesh. The match is due to restart in the next few minutes after being delayed by rain. And finally, Andy Murray will face Kai Nishikori in the quarterfinals of the French Open. The world number 1 beat Russia's Karen Khachanov in straight sets at Roland Garros. All the latest that you need is on the website, talksport.com.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game.
They've done it! Kick-off on Talk Sport.
Danny Murphy and Matt Etherington alongside me, Nat Coombs, on Kickoff tonight. We're talking about what happens to players when their careers are done, and in particular right now, younger players who never got the chance or get the chance to make it at the highest level. And we were chatting then, 85%, you think, back when you were playing, Danny, was the ratio in terms of against, right?
From YTS to pro,
yeah.
I think it was about 85%, maybe a bit more, yeah. That's what we were told.
So read you this Richard Dunn quote that I mentioned a moment ago. He's talking about Everton, right? This is what he says. From the age of 5, they're all doing the same training. The search is to identify one for the first team. It's like a factory and box-ticking exercise. Kids training 4 days a week, a match on Saturday. One-on-one sessions, yoga, strength and conditioning, hand coordination, and they were the under-9s. And he goes on, England's senior team's like a factory-produced side. They're all pretty similar in terms of how they play. How has it changed since when you broke through the ranks to where the game is now in that respect?
Well, that sounds far too much to me. I mean, there's a balance. When I was a young lad, there was the professional clubs, if you got scouted by a professional club, were only allowed to have you for 1 hour a week, which gave the schools free rein on the kids. The schools the priority, your district, your county.
Up until what age was this?
No, it was just permanent. Seal Centre of Excellence, you're still only allowed an hour a week. So the rules changed, I don't know how many years ago, but quite a few now, where the professional clubs got free rein on the players time-wise, or it might be capped, I'm not sure, I might be saying that a bit flippantly, it might be capped. But that makes sense because the professional coaches, the better ones, are coaching the kids rather than the school teacher who's never done a coaching badge, right? So that makes sense. Winning 20-0 for your school or your Sunday league team doesn't help you necessarily progress, but what it does do, it gives you confidence, it's fun, you're with your mates, you're smiling, you're laughing, there's no pressure. So I was very, very lucky in the fact that my footballing seriousness only started at about 13. I made a conscious effort of staying with my Sunday league team for an extra year when I was told not to and play with the professional team, and I didn't want to because I enjoyed it too much. So I say a lot when I speak to kids or groups, we go to a team or whatever, or a tournament, and I'm speaking to a group of young players. You've got to enjoy playing football. You want to learn and you might want to be a footballer, but first and foremost, if you're feeling at 8 years old pressured when you're at Chelsea or Arsenal under 8s, and if you don't play well or you don't train well, they're going to let you go at the end of the season, then I'll end up at Leyton Orient or whatever it means. No, sorry Orient, but you know what it might. You can't have that as an 8-year-old. I hate that thought process that kids are feeling pressured to perform at 8, 9, 10. And they are, by the way.
Yeah, you can't get out of that, though, can you, these days?
You can't, because what they're saying is, if you don't come to the academy where we coach properly and where you're with better players and you improve, you'll fall behind and you won't make it. So the balance for me has gone too far the other way now. I was very lucky in that I played in a time where it wasn't as, what's the word? It just wasn't as ruthless.
Cutthroat.
Yeah. So I think too many kids at a young age now well, I've met quite a few, in fact, so I'm not just saying it flippantly. I've met and spoke to parents of kids who have been traumatised at a certain age by being let go from a centre of excellence or an academy.
Yeah.
And I know that's the way of the world now, but it can't be right.
Yeah, I completely agree. And looking back to early years when I was at Peterborough, we had a very good youth set-up at the time. Our under-18s, the same group that we went all the way through from under-12s. We got to the FA Youth Cup semi-final, played Blackburn, who had a good team at that time, and which was unprecedented, really, for Peterborough United. So, just looking back on it now, it was completely what Danny said. It's just enjoyable, and I don't think it is for the kids that are playing at under-12s, under-11s these days. We used to go abroad. We used to travel by minibus. We used to go to Austria, Denmark, Sweden. And you're having life experiences as well. I remember going to the concentration camps. Obviously, it's a lot to take in at a young age, but you're still having those experiences. And I think they were invaluable. All the laughs on the bus, listening to the songs, singing the songs. Just times I can look back on now with really, really fond memories. Fantastic time of my life. And the football was serious, but you had a lot of fun along the way.
So there was that balance where you had, obviously, you were completely focused and the same levels of passion, the same dreams were held by all the players, but you have fun doing it as well.
Exactly.
Is that impossible to do now? If you're a 12, 13-year-old that's dreaming of being a pro and is attached to a big club, is that level of pressure that Danny was talking about?
I think it's a lot harder, without a doubt. And I think just what Richard Dunn is saying now, I seen that quote a few days ago and I couldn't believe it. And apparently now his son's gone to Monaco and training there, and they train once a week and play on weekends. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
They're too young to be put under that pressure, under that scrutiny, that training. I mean, what does a 9-year-old need to do yoga for?
It's a very good question.
That's ridiculous.
Is there a duty of care from the clubs here? Because look, you can look obviously at both sides, because it's not new that dreams get shattered because not everyone can make the cut. That's the very nature of the business that is football. But do you think that clubs that whole side of it has become more cynical? That clubs are because of the competition, because of the range and the volume of players they can bring in now. Is there a duty of care for those clubs to manage the expectations of the players, or is that impossible for a club to do?
I think it's impossible for them to do, and I think that there should be talks about that, because there is a lot of kids that are put on the wayside and not spoke about again. And you can say that about players when they end the career as well. You never hear from the clubs. It's just one of them things that the clubs move on to the next player.
Yeah.
It's the way of the world, and it's the way it works, unfortunately. But I think, especially at a younger age, to deal with that would be a lot harder. And I do think there should be discussions about that and how they, because it can have a real effect on a kid mentally. Obviously, he may have things in place and he may have done a degree or what have you. But if that's his one goal, is to become a professional footballer, and that's taken away from him mentally, that can have a big effect on him.
Depends on the size of the club as well, remember. So me and Matty had very similar education and entry into the football world. We were at lower league clubs where, for example, when I went to Crewe, I mean, Dario was the manager. He'd been there a long time, and he got himself involved in coaching the young teams as well. He knew everybody. Every other club I'd been at Villa, Wrexham, Sheffield Wednesday, Liverpool. Not one of the first team managers knew who I was. So it was a much more intense... no, not intense, the wrong word. It was more family. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew everybody. Now, you can't have that. I get that at Chelsea, United, Liverpool. I know that. You know, the first team manager's got enough going on to know every player's name in the under-13s. But you can choose your route. You don't have to go just because the big club comes calling. You know, you don't... Parents tend to like their kid being at the big club. But it's not always the perfect route. Depending on the personality of the child or the kid, big fish, little pond, best player in a lesser group can benefit them. Some kids go the other way. The better players are around, they improve, you know, and it's finding for your child the right pathway.
Who is there to advise the parents in particular on that journey, the fact they have those choices?
Well, normally it'll be an employee or a coach of the club that wants you. But what you'll find is quite quickly is that the child's behaviour and happiness in a certain environment is obvious for the parents to see. It's whether the parents are unselfish enough, and some are, of course, to see that and let their child, or go a different pathway, or say, no, this is the way for you. Because a lot of parents now see I say a lot, I can't give a percentage, but there's a lot of pushy parents out there who push their talented kids to a certain club or a certain place where they think they're going to benefit financially more than anywhere else, not footballing wise. They might say, oh, it's great academy, pitches, great, coaches are great. But a lot of young kids who are talented have many choices on where to go and play your football. And I think too many times now the primary focus is about other things other than the happiness and the fun of the child playing the game. Because you don't have to learn everything by 12. I mean, I remember playing with a lad, you asked earlier, I played with a lad at Crewe, I think he was Welsh captain, he was striker, he'd score 6, 7, 8 every game, big, strong, had everything. He got YTS, never made a pro. People caught up with him physically, lost a bit of confidence, and all of a sudden you're looking at a different person. You know, and at 12 or 13, you're thinking this guy's going to be an absolute world beater. So people catch each other up.
On that point, is there still quite a strong emphasis on physicality at an earlier level, or has that changed? Well,
it's hard to explain, but the physicality ain't about size necessarily. I think there are certain clubs that do like players who are going to become bigger. So they'll look at how big your mum and dad are, how you run, how elegantly you run, how you manipulate the ball, the movements. I remember watching a game with Dario. He watched me playing an England schoolboy game, and he was watching. We were 14 at the time, so someone who's been watching youth football for a long time knows the players. And he said to me, "There's only 3, maybe 4 players in that team who are going to make professionals." I said, "How do you know that?" He said, "I can tell by the way they run, the way they move, the way they're going to develop." And he was right with 3. I think 5 did in the end, but he was right with all the ones he said.
Yeah.
And that's not him being a genius, because all the best youth development scouts see it themselves. So there is an emphasis on physicality, but not necessarily size.
Yeah.
It's mobility, balance. Sounds a bit technical, but I've had a lot of conversations. I was at a tournament not so long ago in Surrey, and there was Chelsea guys there, Palace guys there. I was talking with them about what they were looking for, and it was all about, look at the way he's moving, look at the way he glides with the ball, look at, he's off his left, off his right, blah, blah, blah. Then they didn't care that he wasn't the biggest.
Right.
They're thinking that if he's got that lovely flexibility and rhythm and that type of thing, they're looking at,
What about awareness of the game? And obviously a huge amount of that you pick up just by playing it. But in terms of football intelligence at a young age, how much emphasis is there on that? Do you think that has changed in the game?
I think when I was, just talking from my experience at Peterborough, I think the setup there was fantastic in respect of where we went. And at the end of the trip as well, you'd get like a report sheet, and you'd know yourself how well you did during the week and in training sessions and in the tournament, and your behaviour. Professionalism was high up on the list there. They wanted you to act correctly and what have you. So you get a report, and I don't know, dribbling 8 and just stuff like that.
Drinking 9.
Drinking 9, yeah, even at 12.
Yeah.
Just so, and you go home, and just a little thing like you get a keepy uppy sheet, and you'd have to go home 5 days a week, and you'd have to have 5 goes at it, put in your number for each go, and just little things like that.
You're honest with that?
Yeah, well, I think you were at that age to a certain extent, and just little things like that. And I noticed after doing that for a year or 2 years, my touch improved dramatically. And it's just little things that they're old school, don't get me wrong, but I just, when I look back on it, I just really, really liked the way I was brought up as a footballer. I think it helped me as a person, and it helped me as a footballer as well, and it gave me those experiences in life that you don't normally get at that age.
Matt,
so fantastic.
Quickly, was there a player that you went through the ranks with that, like Danny was saying, you thought at 12, 13, 14 they're going to make it, and then didn't?
Yeah, there was. Me and Simon Davis went to Spurs together from Peterborough, and we were always the two that were perceived to be the best. There's another lad called David Billington, who's a centre midfielder that played alongside Simon in midfield, and he was probably better than Simon and better than myself, and he was just outstanding.
He won't have that, Digger.
No, he'll admit it to you. I'm telling you, he'll admit it to you. And one of them just oozed class, glided with the ball, as Danny was saying earlier, 2-footed, scored a goal. He did everything as a centre midfielder, and then he had knee problems when he got to the youth team. And we went on that good run. No, his knee went badly, and he was devastated about it. And Simon's still close to him now. And they still talk about it, and it took a while for him to get over it.
Yeah, I bet. Well, injuries, of course, can strike at any time, and our next guest, who we'll speak to in a moment, was right at the peak of his career when injuries struck, and in the end, put an end to that great career. Dean Ashton, the former England striker, West Ham striker, joins us next.
My Sporting Life, defining moments from Talk Sport.
Ian Rush.
We played Luton at Anfield, and it was a very cold day then. And I went in there, my boots were rock hard. So what I'd done, I wet my boots before the game. Right, so I went out there and I scored, I think the first half, I scored 3 goals. And coming half time, and Phil Thompson said to me, you better do better. And I said, why? He said, because the same day, Tony Woodcock at half time had scored 4 goals for Arsenal.
Wow.
Yeah, and he said, well, so I went out and again at the end of the game, I scored 5 goals, and apparently Tony Woodcock scored 5 goals in the same day.
That's almost incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable there. But again, ever since then, so I scored 5 against Luton. Ever since, even to today, when I play games today, I will always wet my boots before I play a game.
Okay, well,
I'm not superstitious like, but
Legends of sport recall their major achievements with Danny Kelly. My Sporting Life on Talk Sport.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game. They've done it! Kick off on Talk Sport.
You're listening to Monday Night Kickoff here on TalkSport. Nat Coombs, Danny Murphy and Matt Etherington alongside me. We're talking about what happens when players wrap it up. Sometimes that is their choice. In many instances, it isn't. Our next guest is very much in that category. Delighted to say the former England striker Dean Ashton joins us now on Kickoff. Dean, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Danny, Matty, you all right?
Dean, how you doing, mate?
Dean, let's start with how you felt when you knew that you'd come to the end of the road. Because as we've been saying on the show, you were, I think it's fair to say, reaching your peak. You'd had injury issues before and you'd battled back from them. But the day that you realised it had come to an end, talk us through that day.
It sounds daft, but I was kind of relieved in a way because I'd battled so hard, and I think that's probably one thing that maybe fans don't realise is what you have to go through in terms of injury and rehab and the pain that probably you have to play with, and I did have to play with a lot of pain in that last year, and then I was in a pretty bad way in terms of not being able to walk very well day to day. So it was kind of a relief in the way, and then as time goes by, that sort of turns to devastation when you realise that you haven't been able to have the career that you probably deserved and that the hard work you put in was going to allow.
I guess when we've been talking both Matt and Danny in terms of realising when they were coming to the end of their careers, what they were going to do next and how much time they thought about that, with a situation like yours where injury was an issue, but you were battling through it, at what point did you start to think about what might come next?
I didn't, because I didn't want to accept that was going to be it. So especially with rehab as well, the constant thoughts are, well, I'm going to get back, I'm going to be stronger, and all of this issue. So I never even thought about that I was going to actually have to finish. And it took me a long time after football to really decide that, and it meant that I went away from the game, didn't watch football for a good year, 2 years, wasn't interested, took everything in my house down. You wouldn't have known that I even ever played football, and kind of just really switched away from it.
Didn't take the curtains down, did you? You wouldn't sleep if you did that. Everything. I know what you meant, mate. I know what you meant.
Dino, was there any resentment there? Any resentment towards the injury, the way it happened, that your career was over? Did you feel that?
No, there wasn't any resentment in that sense, no, because I feel like that is football, and one challenge here or there. I watch every single game I watch. There's probably a challenge that could be an inch away from being a damaging injury. So I understood that, and that was fine. But what I think probably what bothered me the most, and it's more bitterness. It's more I'm looking at other players, maybe, especially maybe players that I know. It doesn't matter quite as much, and that they don't train maybe as hard as they should, and that side of it, and maybe players that I actually think I'm better than you, and you're going to go on to have a long career and have big moves, and I think that there is I wouldn't be human if I didn't have a little bit of bitterness towards maybe other players getting to have a long career, because the issue you have is you just think why is it me that's not going to get to have a full career? At least give me a chance to fulfil, my potential, and that's the hard thing to take.
Did you have? I know you got a good family around you, but did you have support from the club as well in terms of when that happened, or was it pretty quickly out on your own without sounding too harsh about it?
Oh, the football moves on, Danny. It moves on so quickly. Yeah. Football clubs move on so quickly. But no, you're forgotten about it. It's as harsh as that sounds. You are, because next Saturday there's a game, and that's the most important thing. And I mean, I didn't reach out for any help, but there wasn't a lot. It's not as if there was lots of people coming to me and saying, "Well, you can come and do this," and there's maybe these people you can speak to, or there's counselling here and there. The way I dealt with it was just to shut myself away, whether that was right or wrong. It did work for me, but I wouldn't have thought it would probably work for everybody.
Dean, we've been talking about the level of duty of care, I guess, and the level of education there is in the game for that day when it comes, whether you're 17, you get released, whether you're 36 and you retire on your own terms, or whether, like you, it comes somewhere in between that. How much advice and how much guidance is there while you're a player to help you for when that day comes?
There is nowhere near enough Absolutely, knowing it. There's so many issues that I think that happens when players finish football. That that there's financially, people don't realise that maybe you've helped your family financially, and suddenly you can't help them in that sense, and that people are relying on you for their weekends to come and watch you, and there's so many other issues. Obviously your family and how they cope with it, and how that changes your life. And one day you're in a dressing room with lots of people. I mean, Matty, I'll tell you, I wasn't the loudest person in the dressing room, but how much I enjoy just sitting, laughing, being part of a team, to then be suddenly very lonely at home every single day. There's so many issues, I think, that players coming out of the game, whether it's like me where you finish early, or whether it's you just finish at the ripe old age of sort of 34, 35, we're all the same. We've been part of a team, and suddenly you sat at home, and it's very, very different. And I think there's so many issues that players could be educated about regarding finishing football.
I asked both Danny and Matt what they miss most about playing. What do you miss most, Dean?
The thing I miss the most is that I was part of other players as well, but thousands of people are coming to a stadium to watch you play. That is the buzz of going to the actual matches, turning up at the stadium, knowing that there's thousands of people turning up, and you're there then to perform on a beautiful pitch with the netting looking beautiful. All of that that's what I miss. It's the sort of match day, and the feelings that you get with the players on the match day is like nothing I've ever experienced.
It's the adrenaline, isn't it? It's the adrenaline and the buzz. That's what it is.
Of course it is, yeah, exactly. I just love the fact that everyone's there to watch you. Everyone's paying to come and watch you. You've got to that level where and the joy that you can bring people.
Well, just to elaborate on that as well, I don't know if you on match, I know it's changed a bit with formations and stuff, and marking space and all that. But as a centre forward, you're always going to get marked by a centre half of some sort. And if you're playing in midfield, you're going to be up against someone, the majority, not always necessarily the same one throughout the 90. But that's what I missed. That individual duel where you're 78 minutes looking at the clock going, I'm knackered. But I'm not going to show him because I think he's knackered as well. And you've just got that, that constant battle. And then you just, somehow you do something that, it might be a through ball, or Dino gets a goal, or Matty puts a cross in, or whatever it is. And you feel like you've done him on that day. That's a bit I miss the most.
Yeah, yeah, of course, the competitive side to it. And again, there's not really the same thing you can find away from football that'll give you that competitiveness again up against somebody. And I think again, unless you play football at that sort of level, you don't realise how sore you are as well after games, and the effort that you obviously put in against your opponent. And that they're all the things that you miss. You take for granted when you're playing, and as soon as you finish, you miss that side of it.
So what would you do to change things, Dean, in terms of helping players coming through at whatever level they're at become more aware of what's going to inevitably at some point come next in their life? What would you recommend was introduced to the game to try and change it?
I think it's really difficult. I think when you've got young players just think they know it all, and that you can't. It's hard to get through to probably, I think, 80% of young players, because they think they're going to make it and they're going to be fine and rolling around in great cars. I think probably ex-players aren't used enough to come back and guide players. People that have been through it, people that know what it's like to finish and the issues that you have. I think ex-players probably don't. We don't have ex-players coming out more and talking about the issues. Like I said, financial issues and sort of like Matty, gambling issues. There's so many issues, I think, from football that ex-players have been through. I don't think there's probably enough tapping into that to help young people, because generally with the young players, it might take somebody that maybe they've watched or they've heard about to maybe get through to them, because I think it's important that young players learn it more than maybe the older statesmen. So
many ex-players would love that as well, in terms of the focus, give them something to focus on and put their mind to and actually get a wage from. It doesn't have to be amazing money, but with the Premier League's money and the club's money, bringing back a few players to do that type of job, in an educational role, and for the young lads as well, when they're going through stuff, would certainly be beneficial. I agree with you, mate.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Dean, I really appreciate you joining us tonight. Thanks very much indeed. Look after yourself.
Yes, cheers.
Top
Cheers,
man,
Dean.
Dean.
All the best, mate.
Well. Craig's got in touch with us on Twitter. He says, we won't forget you, Dino. You're special to us. Dean Ashton, the former England striker there, talking about life after football. We're going to keep that going in the final hour of kickoff tonight. We're going to get an American perspective at the top of the last hour. I mentioned earlier on that Sports Illustrated article, which prompted the documentary by ESPN. 80% or 78% to be precise of NFL players go bankrupt or are in severe financial distress in just 2 years after their retirement. We're going to ask why, and we're going to see what American clubs and American sporting franchises do to protect their players. That's all coming up next on Kickoff.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide.
He gets to it. Oh, my goodness me.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
With Audi, the Blues versus the British and Irish Lions, live from Eden Park, Auckland. Kick-off Wednesday morning, 8:35am on TalkSport 2. With more expert pre-match build-up and big game anticipation that is safe for human consumption from 8.
The British and Irish Lions Tour of New Zealand 2017 on TalkSport and TalkSport 2. With Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
With great deals on Avon tyres, blackcircles.com are making Britain's drivers happier, as this dashboard recording demonstrates.
Out the way, you
Buffoon!
Ain't you heard of
blackcircles.com?
'Cause even you could
Win Amazon vouchers.
And if that's not enough, you could
Have the chance to win your tyres for free.
You
cheeky scamp. So Britain, get Avon tyres at blackcircles.com to click, fit and save. Conditions apply.
Have I got PPI? Want to know if you've had PPI? Find out with our free PPI check.
The team at Stanton Fisher recently claimed back over £4,500 for me. This money was invaluable, as I'd been out of work for a little while, and it gave me some breathing space. I did very little, and I got some money back. It was awesome.
So text check to 80800 for your free PPI check. Have I got PPI.com? That's check to 80800.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Talk Sport.
Lots more to come in the final hour of tonight's kickoff with Matt Etherington and Danny Murphy alongside me. We're going to look at what American teams, American sporting franchises do, if anything, to protect their players for when retirement comes and the end of the road comes in terms of their playing career. We'll carry on talking about what the game needs to do over here to protect players more, to educate players more. So plenty more to come. Plus, we'll get into some of the big football headlines from the last few days with Matt and Danny. We'll come out after the news and sport headlines with Craig Wakeling.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Coming up, more details on the London attackers. And in sport, we hear from Gordon Strachan on the Scotland-England game this Saturday.
Talk Sport.
Police have confirmed one of the London terror attackers was known to authorities and even appeared in a TV documentary about jihadists. 27-year-old Karim Butt has been investigated by Scotland Yard and MI5, who found no evidence an attack was being planned. Meanwhile, a number of people remain unaccounted for since the killings. Sebastian Belenga is one of them. His girlfriend Gerd has been outside hospitals giving out leaflets as she tries to find him.
He's the nicest person in the world. I really want to see him again, or just know if he's okay. I just want to know if he's all right, or anywhere. I just need any information that I could know if he's there.
Meanwhile, London's mayor has told a vigil for those murdered in the attack, saying that terrorists will never succeed in dividing his city. He's praised emergency services for their response. Those who gathered not far from the scene of Saturday's killings held a minute's silence for those who died. Tributes continue to come in for the former Newcastle midfielder, Cheick Tioté, who's died at the age of 30. He collapsed during a training session with his club at Beijing Enterprises. The Ivorian, who was capped 52 times by his country, spent 7 years in the northeast before moving to China in January. The club legend Alan Shearer said that the news is devastating, and teammate Rob Elliott called him an absolute warrior. And Peter Sallis, who was the voice of Wallace in the animated series Wallace and Gromit, has died aged 96. He also starred in the long-running sitcom Last of the Summer Wine.
Talk Sport weather.
With ATS Euromaster, relax. With a huge range of tyres available to suit any budget, you're in good hands.
Rain for most of the country. It'll be quite windy as well. The low 9 degrees Celsius.
Talk Sport Sports Update.
The Scotland manager Gordon Strachan says he couldn't have been more impressed by the squad that's assembled today. They're getting ready to face England in a World Cup qualifier at Hampden on Saturday. Strachan says he can't remember seeing a more motivated group of players.
This is a huge game, an exciting game, a game everybody's looking forward to. And the boys put a marker down this morning at the first training session. We want to be ready for this game. The marker they set themselves, no me, they set it this morning.
Chelsea winger Eden Hazard will miss the start of next season after having surgery on a broken ankle. The Premier League champions say the operation was a success and they expect him to be back in training in around 3 months. He was injured while preparing with Belgium for an upcoming World Cup qualifier. England's under-20s are through to the semi-finals of the World Cup. First time they've reached the last four in 24 years. They beat Mexico 1-0 in their last 8 tie in South Korea. Dominic Solanke scoring the only goal of the game. They'll go on to face the Italians on Thursday. Now, Ken Owens has been chosen to captain the British and Irish Lions for their second game on the Rugby Union Tour of New Zealand. The Wales Hookers one of 15 changes for Wednesday's match with Super Rugby side the Blues in Auckland. Finally, Andy Murray will face Kane Nishikori in the quarterfinals of the French Open. The world number 1 beat Russia's Karen Khachanov in straight sets at Roland Garros. We've got full live commentary of England's next ICC Champions Trophy match tomorrow. They take on New Zealand. Meanwhile, latest is on the website, talksport.com.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game. They've done it! Kick-off on Talk Sport.
It is Monday Night Kickoff. Good to have you with us. Matt Etherington and Danny Murphy with me, Nat Coombs, in the studio. We are talking about life after football, whatever point that day comes in your career, what happens next. And we're going to carry that rolling into a lot of this hour. A bit later on in the hour, Steve Walters from the Offside Trust is going to be joining us to talk about a celebrity football match to fundraise for the Trust. That's a bit later on. And also Danny and Matt are going to help me look at some of the big stories over the last couple of days and get into them as well. But we're going to kick things off by giving or taking an American perspective on the similar principle of what happens when players retire, in particular focusing on an article that ran 5-6 years ago in Sports Illustrated. Subsequently, they made an ESPN documentary about it that cited 78% of NFL players were bankrupt or under severe financial distress just 2 years after they retired. So helping us shed some light on the reasons why that is the case in the NFL. John Krieger joins us now. John, how are you?
I'm great, gentlemen. How are you this afternoon?
Good, thank you. Good to have you with us, John. So let's start with the bankruptcy definition, because obviously in the States there's quite a lot of, well, the same over here, I guess, as well, but there are a number of celebrities, irrespective of whether they're sports stars, who file for bankruptcy as a way of getting out of a certain situation. Doesn't necessarily mean they've run out of money, does it?
No, it's basically a protection under U.S. law that allows you to say that the amount of money that I owe is greater than the amount of money I expect to earn. And so there's no reasonable way that I could expect to pay off my creditors and still be able to live. We use it. It's actually called bankruptcy protection here, rather than the winding up orders that you often see from Her Majesty's Customs and Revenue. And so it's much more freely used in terms of saying, yes, I have money, but I've accrued too much debt and will be underwater, and the interest in things would be something that I could never hope to get out of, and so you seek relief from the court.
Okay, so we've got to bear that in mind when we look at that those statistics, but nevertheless, it's still a significant number. One of the things I think, I guess, is relevant to this is that in the NFL, firstly, with the salary caps that you have a statutory minimum salary, so automatically that the least a player can earn is a decent chunk, but then you've got to factor that against the average length of playing career, which is what, just over 3 years?
Just over 3 years. And the other part of that, Nat, that you've got to bring in is the fact that the NFL, unlike the other American sport leagues, doesn't feature guaranteed contracts for all of its players. You know, you have the Premier League, you've put your name on the line, and unless you're in a, Jonathan Woodgate kind of pay for appearance kind of thing, you're pretty much guaranteed that the wage packet that you're going to get is what you're going to get. Here in the NFL, at least, unless the language is written into your contract that salaries are guaranteed, they're considered non-guaranteed. And so if you're an undrafted rookie or you come into the league and you get injured, they'll settle with you, but you're basically, then you're kind of cut off, and they're very strict on the language on contracts. And so, first of all, you have to look at how far they stay in the league before injury does take their toll. And then you have to look at sometimes some very bad contractual language that leaves players short.
Is there a regulated body that looks after the guys, the agents and financial advisors there? Because in football, and I'm privy to this myself, is that when you're, especially a working class lad and come into earning money and you take advice off other players who should be looking after your money, because obviously nobody I knew had ever had any money to give me any advice. It's only 10 years down the line, after you start looking into things and other people open your eyes to it, that you realise that some of these guys who are working for big companies and looking after many famous people have been doing bad things with your money and, not far off breaking the law, some of them. I mean, but the regulation, there is regulation here in this country, but it's not very good. It doesn't deal with the issues very well.
No, it's not. And, and ever since FIFA, kind of loosened those regulations, basically to the point where you can say, well, I'm an agent, and there you're an agent. And that's kind of the way it is here, because an agent is really anyone that the player designates as their representative. There are people whose agent is a family member. It's just the person that you designate. We do have agency firms, and, the league could refuse to do business with some of them, but it is rather the Wild West when you come to that. And so, sometimes people will go with agents. If we're looking specifically at the NFL, the biggest agent on the block is Drew Rosenhaus. You have the IMG clients as well. You have some big agencies. But much like the way FIFA has relaxed things, no, there's not a whole lot. And so one of the ways that the NFL is looking to combat things, and since that article came out in Sports Illustrated, is by now conducting team symposiums for all new players. And the one bit of regulation that they have now is that they require all NFL teams to conduct a workshop for any new player to the program that deals with a number of things: drug use, being out in public, dealing with the press, and a required element on financial planning. And from a league-wide basis, what they do now is there is a program that you can enroll in that will help to train you for possible life and careers after football, because a lot of these young players are coming from university situations where they are playing football and they're supposed to be going to class, but the academic load is not very rigorous. And so they're trying to give them opportunities to learn a trade or move to a career after football that can keep them afloat.
That is maybe a misconception, isn't it, John, that people point to the States and particularly the NFL and say you can't get into the pros without having paid your academic dues at college. How much of a smokescreen is that? How serious really is the education level that players, when they're star players on those college teams, need to adhere to get a degree?
Yeah, have you ever seen an F1 car blow a turbo and the smoke that comes out of that? That's the size of the smoke screen that comes out of this. Really. It is. The highest level university programs, I would like to sit here and nobly claim that United States programs, they want to make sure kids get degrees and do all of that. If they're getting a degree, they're getting a degree oftentimes in a field or a career. If they're a star player, that is basically designed to keep them on the training pitch and to fulfill the requirements to keep them academically eligible through the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Administration, which is the kind of the regulatory body for uni sport. But if you look at some of the class loads at a program like Alabama or the University of Michigan or some of the Southeastern Conference schools or out west, Oregon, some of the other big college football schools, they're designed to keep the players on the training pitch with the least amount of inconvenience as is humanly possible. And so when you say, yes, you've paid your dues in uni, first of all, you can leave uni up to a year early, so you're not always guaranteed to finish your degree. And second of all, those degrees are sometimes, and I hate to say it, not worth the paper that they're printed on. And so the NFL has had to take a bigger role in making sure that there's a bit of a way to fill that gap, and they're trying to make up the difference.
Actually, when you look at that, I think that if you're a superstar player and you're academically poor, because a lot of people who are good academically get it from your parents. It's not something you can work on too much. Some people are good with numbers, some people aren't. Some people get the work, some people don't. Some people are more academic. I don't see why you should be punished for not getting a degree or not being capable of getting a degree. I think for me, it's more about making sure that players have to be involved in the stuff you're talking about, like workshops, like classrooms, like listening to advice, life skills, more than, right, you've got to do the degree, otherwise you can't be an NFL player. I don't even think that should be in place anyway.
Well, but see, that's the difference between your system of developing athletes and ours. Really, we don't have the situation. If we take football and we take what's going on there, if you're a decent football talent, you're being signed up as an academy player, and you're going through that rank, and so you are juggling school and academy football from a young age. We don't have academy football. You can play youth football, and we have high school football, but the academy development system isn't there, and so it's kind of this racket that's come in. Look, there are a lot of people that agree with you and say if the kid wants to play football, the kid wants to play football. But then the other side of that is that we in this country, for reasons passing understanding, have just decided that uni sport is the way that this is going to be. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry,
business,
so it's not changing, so they're not going to change it.
No, fair point.
Let's talk about individual players for a moment, John. Look, you can find examples in any walk of life of somebody that's made a whole load of money and blown it all, but that stat, even if you factor in the definition of bankruptcy, is startling. And there are poster boys for that. Allen Iverson amongst them, an NBA player, obviously not in the NFL, but the problems there in the NBA as well. He earned in excess of $200 million in his career, yet declared himself bankrupt, and by all accounts really had run out of money. A lot of people said that was because of the lifestyle that a lot of NBA players during his generation anyway were expected to adhere to keep up that profile. And it's a vicious circle that you've got to maintain a certain status and profile to cement your celebrity personality to make the big bucks. Tell us more about the story of Iverson and why you think players can earn so much money in the States and then blow it all.
Well, partially because you're absolutely right. The materialistic culture in the NBA is rampant. The fact that you come in, you get a paycheck, and now you have to have bling. You have to have that material status, and also you have more so than any other sport because the NBA, aside from Major League Baseball, which does a much better job of structuring pay things so that money shock doesn't hit its athletes. Of the other three major sports leagues, NBA players turn professional youngest.
Yep.
They only need to be outside of high school for 1 year. And an NBA first-round draft pick is guaranteed to be paid a minimum of $6 million over 3 years. So if you are a 19-year-old kid who, let's face it, let's look at the statistics, may be coming from an economically disadvantaged background in a lot of cases, and someone hands you a guaranteed $6 million, 4 million quid contract, you're going to want to go out and have a little bit of bling. And if you take a look at Allen Iverson, he came into the league. He was instantly a star, and he really had not had the mentoring growing up, either from the family side or from trusted adults who had been telling him he was special for years, to say, look, you've got to watch out who you hang on to and what you do. In that filing in 2012, in December 2012, he told the court that he was making $62,500 a month, but that he was spending in excess of $360,000 per month, including paying back creditors at $125,000 a month, $10,000 a month on clothes, $10,000 a month on restaurants and entertainment, $10,000 a month on groceries. He wasn't, shopping at the pound store, really. But the biggest thing with Allen Iverson was he had a huge entourage. When he came here to play in Detroit, he had hangers-on that would just glom on him, and he never learned how to say no. And so he's the cautionary tale that has seen the NBA create a symposium to help its new draft picks learn from his mistakes, because people were there for him when he had the money and deserted him when the money left and left him with nothing.
Cautionary tale is the operative phrase, and that's what I want to end on. Symposiums and veterans coming to talk to the younger players. Do they listen? Do you get a sense that any of it's going in?
Some of them are listening, and I bring up the example of Ryan Broyles, who played for my hometown Detroit Lions. He came into the NFL with an injury in university football, but he was drafted by the Detroit Lions in the second round. He was signed up for a contract that paid him $2 million He lasted the length of that contract and is now out of football. But him and his girlfriend had gone to the rookie symposiums. They listened, and they figured out that if he lived on a budget of $60,000 a year, his investments and being able to build that money would allow him to live for life without ever really having to work. And that's what he did. While the rest of his teammates were driving, Hummers and other cars, he was driving a Mazda and coming in and, eating on and living on $60,000 a year. So we do see a little bit of a reduction in that in the NFL. They're listening and they're starting to learn that the money isn't always going to be there. The NBA is a little slower, but the league is certainly doing more than its part to try to educate these young kids.
John, really appreciate your time. Interesting stuff. Many thanks,
John.
Thanks, gentlemen.
John Krieger there.
Hey, no wrong with a Mazda.
Hey,
right. You know when I went to Liverpool?
Right.
I went to Liverpool. I had a red Seat Ibiza. It was all right, not a bad car. Done me proud at the time.
Did the job.
I didn't. No, let me finish. It's a good one. So after about 4 or 5 months, I think it was Robbie Fowler said to me, "Listen, mate, you got a few quid in your pocket. You need a new car. Don't go mad, but you need something a bit nicer than that. Just something that looks nice, some alloys, and just go and get yourself a new car." Turned up with a green Mazda, alloys, CD player to work, 15 grand. I thought it was the dogs, and even then I got laughed at. But it's a great story the contrast between those two players that he just said.
Yeah, isn't it? Material states. I want to get into that with you and how important it is in football. We hear it's massive in the NBA. What about football? And I want to know what your clothing budget as well was, Danny. But compared to Allen Iverson's, I bet it's similar. Michael's got in touch via Twitter. Great show. He says, my boy, who's age 6, is in Everton development, eats, sleeps and dreams football. If it moves, he kicks it. He agrees with you, Danny. It always has to be about fun. You listen to Kick Off Monday night here on TalkSport.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide.
He gets to it. Oh, my goodness me.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
V500 today. Limited time only. Available when purchased with Honda Aspirations personal contract purchase. Terms and conditions apply. See honda.co.uk for details. Indemnities may be required in certain circumstances. Finance is only available to persons aged 18 or over, subject to status. Credit provided by Honda Finance Europe plc.
Have I got PPI? Want to know if you've had PPI? Find out with our free PPI check. Emmanuelle received over £2,400 on her Barclaycard.
I had already attempted to claim back PPI, but with no success, so I wasn't hopeful when I first contacted Stanton Fisher. Needless to say, I was pleasantly surprised with the outcome.
So text check to 80800 for your free PPI check. Have I got PPI.com? That's check to 80800.
Get more from your radio with Talk Sport and Betfair Exchange. Ready? Every weekend, stay in play and get the greatest value in sports broadcasting from the best in the business. Talk Sport.
It just had to be, didn't it?
Making you the biggest winner with all the anticipation and excitement, plus incredible commentaries from around the sporting world. Talk Sport with Betfair Exchange. Get more from your bet and set your own odds against other punters. Win bigger with Betfair. 18 plus. Gamble aware.
It's a TalkSport rugby summer. The entire British and Irish Lions Tour of New Zealand 2017. Throughout the summer, exclusively on TalkSport.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game. They've done it! Kick off on Talk Sport.
Right after kick-off, 10 o'clock, as always, Andy and Jace with the Sports Bar, and Andy's dropped by to say hi.
Hello, how are you, lads?
Yeah, very good.
Good.
Was all right till you come in, but anyway. Put the fear of God into me now.
How are you, Danny? Good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. And are you all right, Nat?
Yeah, very well.
And Matty?
I'm very good, mate.
Good. You all look wonderful.
Can I just get some backup from you two here? He's had a little pop back on Insta at me. He posted a picture. He posted a picture of his dinner.
Yeah.
Which was, I think it was a steak with no sauce and some veg and stuff.
Well, I haven't put sauce on yet.
Well, whatever. But, I just sent him a message saying, nobody cares what you eat.
Yeah.
And he responded going, why can't you just say, well, that looks like a nice meal plan or whatever it was?
No, I didn't respond with that. No, you're giving out fake news.
Okay, what was it?
I said, why did you text me then? That looks amazing. Can you let me know your diet plan so I can shed some weight so I put on a lot of timber?
Because I haven't. And secondly,
that's the text
how many people post their... people post food. Is that... It's just
that in a
annoying,
restaurant,
isn't it?
they're not eating anything.
Hey, Dan,
Ooh, look what I'm having for dinner. And someone go, oh, great,
Dan,
Andy Goldstein, he's having a steak with
Dan,
no sauce.
one
Brilliant.
Word, unfollow.
Eh?
Unfollow if you don't
I
like it.
can't like you. I respect you. And I know there will be 1 in 10 that's quite funny.
Tomorrow I'm going to mash up some avocado and stick it on toast just for you.
Oh, would you?
All right?
Every night this week.
That
I think we should
seems
have a
to be the
photo.
thing to do. Dan, I'll take that into consideration.
Thanks, mate.
All right? I'll block you. we got lots coming up on our show. We're starting, obviously, with football chat. We're talking about Virgil van Dijk. We're asking the question why it looks like he's going to choose Liverpool, a club that haven't guaranteed Champions League football yet, over clubs like City and Chelsea and perhaps even Arsenal, you could argue, coming down south.
Do you want the answer?
No. 087170234. Money's what you're going to say, isn't it?
No, it's not money.
All right, what do you think it is?
I know what it is.
What do you think it is?
Jurgen Klopp.
Because he's the only manager that showed him that much attention.
I think when you meet managers as a player, which we've done, someone will always stand out above the rest.
But the club has to. Do you mind me asking him into your time? The club has to have something to do with it. If the club's not going in the right direction, you won't choose the right manager.
Oh, yeah, of course. But Liverpool have just got in the Champions League.
Not yet, they haven't.
They're going to go big on budget.
Yeah.
Just bid 30 odd for Salah, haven't they? They're going to go big in terms of spend. And I think he's got a feeling. I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you're not in his head, and we don't know for sure where he's going to go. But my understanding is that Klopp has sold the club and the idea of what they're trying to do really, really well.
Okay, well, that's what we're going to be talking about. And if that is the case, why haven't the other managers done that? Because he's a hell of a player. And I think if Liverpool get him, they've got the beginnings of what could be. Yeah, it will be a top signing. So that's what we're going to start with. We've got back pages in every hour. We've got Mark Landon talking European football, talking about all the big moves and shakers or not, and looking back at the Champions League final. Thought it was fantastic. Well, the first half was fantastic.
I thought Juve did all right first half.
Yeah?
It was great. I thought it was a great final.
I thought, actually, Madrid scored against the run of play, didn't they?
Did you see Ronaldo's little boy score?
Did you see that? I didn't see that, no.
Did you not see it? So afterwards on the pitch, they had all the celebrations. And his boy came on and beat 2 other kids of dad. You know, the son. Fantastic goal.
Where was his mum?
She was offside. We've got Swap Shop tonight, which, as you know...
Oh, where's we up to?
We are up
Where's
to...
we up to? Where are we up to?
A signed copy of a Sir Matt Busby book, signed by Sir Matt Busby.
Nice.
That's where we're up to tonight. And we have got a bit of ruggers, of course, after the back of the first game.
How long is it going on for, the Swap Shop?
Until we get... the rule is until we get something big enough that we think when we put it on eBay, we can sell it for charity, and that will make us the most amount of money.
Right.
Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking how good the one you've got is.
It is good, but hopefully we'll better it tonight. But if the best offer is a tin of beans, we have to swap it for that.
You've done well getting that with 14 listeners.
Oh, you listen as well, dear?
I nearly had a jump, didn't he?
Nearly.
Sports Bar from
Me and
10.
the Cundy from
10 o'clock.
PM.
Lovely, jubbly. Thank you very much.
Back to your 10, Danny.
Thank you very much, indeed. Andy and Jason from just after 10 on the Sports Bar. We heard from John Krieger about the material status was so important in the NBA, and Allen Iverson, we heard, blew all that money, 200 million he made in his career, and it all went, and he said he had an entourage of up to 50 people, and we heard some of the things he said in court he was spending money on. How important is that in modern day European football, do you think, that element of status?
I think, yeah, there definitely some credibility to that. I mean, I look back now and think, why did I buy that car or that car? I mean, I was reasonably cautious. Sensible with some of my stuff, which has, done me okay. But occasionally I was, I wasn't a big spender on clothes, didn't really know about fashion, as people would tell you, and be laughing at who know me. Still not. But yeah, I treat myself to the odd nice car and look back. But I got rid of them quite quickly because I was very wary that it looked too much in the end. I mean, I was driving, for example, I got an Aston Martin when I'd moved from Liverpool to Charlton. And after a little while, I was thinking, this ain't right. The noise it makes, pulling in that car, it's a bad impression. It just doesn't look.
Going into the club, you mean, as opposed to just around and about in London?
Well,
or both?
A bit of both, yeah, because before you know it, you're getting people waiting at your car at car parks, getting pulled by the police a lot and stuff like that. And I was thinking, what you did, it's costing you a fortune, just get rid of it. Get rid of it. And, ended up in a normal kind of, I say normal, a nice 4x4, which was safer, more like robust, if you like. But, yeah, I think even like watches, for example, I remember buying my first ever Rolex for about $2,000 and thinking that'll do me. Never thought I'd spend $2,000 on a watch. You know, and about 5 years later, I've probably got... I mean, some lads collect watches and then sell them on and make money. I know that. But a lot of lads would buy a nice flash watch because they could, you know, and end up with 4 or 5 watches where you can only...
wear one at a time.
Yeah, well, I recently sold a couple of watches because I only wear one watch now. I'm thinking, why have I still got those watches? Sell them.
It seems pretty sensible what Danny's saying, right? You're going to spend a bit of money, reward yourself.
Yeah, you've got to enjoy it.
You've got to enjoy it a bit. How are you? I'm not expecting, obviously, you to name names, but is that par for the course in terms of? Did you find that more players were showier and flashier than that? Less?
I think again going back to we're in an ego-driven business, world really, and lads like to let people know that they've got a few quid behind them, what with the cars or the watches or whatever. I remember when I was gambling like a lunatic and in debt, I still went and bought an Aston Martin purely because looking back on it now, it was to perceive that I could buy an Aston Martin. Looking back on it now, absolute stupidity what I did. But I think, I'm not going to name him, but there was a young lad that signed a professional contract, had a great career in the Premier League now. And I think he signed his professional contract for 20 grand a week. So say he was clearing 40 grand a month after tax, and his agent said to him, I'm taking 20 grand of that money and I'm sticking it in a bank account. And he's done that ever since, and I think he's been playing now for 10, 12 years. I wish I had someone that would have said that to me. Just looking back on it now, I think that's brilliant what his agent did.
I did,
Did you?
I look back and remember I remember a player, a senior player at Liverpool said to me, I said, what do you do for investments and all that? He said, I put X amount away in a bank, not great interest, every month, and it stays there.
Stays there.
And the rest I live off and pay the mortgage,
exactly.
blah, blah, blah.
Got a tweet in from Lord Early at TalkSport. If you want to follow suit, do you think academy players should be taught about managing their money, life skills, as well as the usual academics? This is your point earlier, Danny. That's probably arguably, certainly as important, maybe more important, right?
Yeah, it is more life skills, for sure. I mean, the fortunate players are the ones who have some brains in the family and around them. Now, you can have family members who can take you to the cleaners and be corrupt as well. Don't get me wrong. Just because someone's a family member doesn't mean they've got your best interests at heart. I'm not saying that. But if you've got some people in your family and in your support network who know a bit about it, then you're already on the right path. It doesn't half help. So huge. That's to do with your family.
That is huge.
Huge. Yeah. If you don't have that, you need a bit of luck. So I could name you 50 players and the 25 good luck and 25 bad luck stories who all did the same thing. And when I say the same thing, I don't necessarily mean investments. I mean, go with an advisor who was advised to them by other players at their club. Some of them very good, some of them average, fair to middle, and some of them awful and corrupt, right? That is luck, because you don't know any different. Now, as you get a bit older, of course, you should be able to make more informed decisions. Internet came, ask around, second opinions, blah, blah, blah. But by that point, sometimes you can already be knee-deep.
Too late,
yeah, of course. So there is definitely I mean, it's got so much better, by the way. The PFA have been a lot more active. You've got big firms coming in doing seminars for, the managers, and I think coaches at youth level are trying to advise. But if you're a young lad with a very dominant support network of uncles, dad, brothers, whoever it may be, you're not going to listen. You're only going to listen to them. And that's where problems can start. But it's a cynical world out there with the amount of figures we're talking about now, and that there's definitely more to be done in helping the younger players realise that if they're careful, cautious and sensible, they can have a fantastic life with the money they earn now.
You're listening to Monday Night Kickoff. We're going to chat to Steve Walters about the work he's doing at the Offside Trust. That's next here on Kickoff.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide.
He gets to it. Oh, my goodness me.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Responsibly at ComeOn.com. New UK customers only. Minimum £10 bet on odds of 1.8 or more qualifies for £10 free bet token. Terms apply.
Tradesmen, here's the plan. Get to the rendezvous. Your contact the foreman will show you the ropes and the tools. Get into your job and get out. You'll be sipping margaritas on the beach before you know it. But first, prove you're a guy they can trust. Show them your direct line public liability policy, which has been conveniently wired to your phone. And tell them you're with the Wolf. Let's get to work.
Get instant confirmation of your cover sent straight to your smartphone. Can your insurance do that? Search Direct Line Public Liability Insurance. Valid email address required. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
The life of a van driver. A life of surprises. A life we chose without compromises.
We're a bit different. More than just a van. Not all bacon sarnies and right arm tans.
Days unique, sights ever-changing. Freedom, flexibility, jobs wide-ranging.
A life on the road, one without strife. We're van drivers. This is our van life.
Live your van life in the new multi-award-winning Toyota Pro Ace. What Van Light Commercial Vehicle of the Year 2017. On contract hire at £199 per month. Toyota, always a better way. Pro Ace Comfort Medium 1.1695 DIN HP. Available on contract hire at £199 per month over 3 years. Initial rental £1,194. Business users over 18 only. Excluding VAT of 20%. Conditions apply.
Straight after kick-off, Annie and Jason with the Sports Bar, of course, from 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's the Sports Breakfast. Danny Kelly, Mickey Quinn with that one, John Barnes, Steve Harmison amongst their guests. That's tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. Time to go to Sports Heads now with Craig Wakely.
The Chelsea winger Eden Hazard will miss the start of the season after having surgery on a broken ankle. The Premier League champions say the operation he had was a success and they expect him to be back in training in around 3 months. And it'll be a completely different British and Irish Lions rugby union team in their second match of the Tour of New Zealand on Wednesday. Head coach Warren Gatland's made 15 changes for the match against the Blues in Auckland. The Wales hooker Ken Owens has been named as the captain, and Andy Murray will have to overcome Kane Nishikori in the quarterfinals of Roland Garros. The pair will meet after both coming through their fourth round matches. The world number one lost to Nishikori the same stage of the US Open last year. We've got full live commentary of England's next ICC Champions Trophy match tomorrow. They take on New Zealand. Meanwhile, everything you need is on the website talksport.com.
The ICC Champions Trophy 2017 on Talk Sport.
That's what the crowd wants to see.
Tomorrow morning from 10, hear full ball-by-ball commentary of England versus New Zealand, direct from Cardiff.
Hale's taking the aerial route all the way to the fence this time. 6 runs. Joe Root has got 100.
England versus New Zealand.
2 to win for England. And he goes again through mid-wicket. 4 runs to see England home.
Tomorrow morning from 10 on Talk Sport.
Wonderful.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game.
They've done it.
Kick-off on Talk Sport.
You're listening to Monday Night Kickoff right here on TalkSport. Nat Coombs, Matt Etherington, Danny Murphy with you. Delighted to say our next guest joins Kickoff, having been on the show a couple of times before, talking about his work with the Offside Trust. So he's joining us now to update us on how the trust is going and the work that they're doing. Steve Walters, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. Good to have you on, Steve. So, like I said, you've been on the show a couple of times over the last few months. Since you were last on, update us on where you're at and the work that the Trust is doing.
Okay, yeah. Basically, we've yet to receive any funding at all since we started the Offside Trust. So, we're getting to the stage now. We're looking for funding. So. Hence why we're organising this celebrity football match. So want to get some money in the bank and to raise the profile, really.
So you got a big celebrity match coming up the 20th of August, right?
That's correct. Yes, okay. In Kirsten Ashton, which Sir Alex reopened last year. It's a lovely little ground. So it's 4,000. So we're open to get a sellout there, hopefully.
And tell us how people can get involved with that. I mean, obviously above and beyond paying for tickets and going to see it, how can people get behind it and support it?
Well, first of all, we need corporate organisations to get involved with sponsorship. We need to ex-footballers, to engage in obviously come and play along. Obviously the higher the profile, the more interest we're going to attract amongst the public.
Don't know why you want me playing then. I'm going to be playing in it.
You're playing, Danny?
Yeah, I think what Steve and the guys are doing is tremendous, but it's really difficult for them to get funding. For anybody to get funding, actually, because there's so many requests these days. But football match is always a good way, and try and get as many people there playing, which obviously gets the crowd up a little bit, doesn't it? So, that's the aim. Yeah,
of course it is, yes. Obviously, Danny himself has kindly agreed to play. We've got the likes of Trevor Sinclair, Ashley Ward, Didi Adabula. We're open on Matt Letizia.
Wow.
And celebrity-wise, we're hoping, we're I think we've possibly got a yes from the likes of John Bishop. So we have got some high profile.
A decent lineup, yeah. And
I'll have a word with Bish. He loves it. He's tough.
There you go. Daniel put in a word.
Do you know what?
He loves his brother Eddie. He's crazy at Northwich years ago.
He used to play at Chester, Eddie. I saw him at John's 50th recently, and he couldn't believe that. I remembered him. He was tough and all, wasn't he?
Oh, it's horrible. I bet he tried to sew some metal gates, did he?
No, he didn't actually.
Is he a good player, John Bishop? Then.
Pardon?
He's a good player.
He's all right. Yeah. He played. I think he played like Winsford level, didn't he, Scrap? I think he.
He played Whitton Albion.
Yeah. He's not as mobile as he once was, I don't think.
Centre mid, up and down.
Oh, I think he fills in at right back now, I think. No, it'd be good.
Steve, tell us about some of the support the Trust has been getting. Obviously, trying to raise financial support for obvious reasons, but it's just in terms of media outlets and others supporting the work that you're doing, getting behind it. Tell us about the journey you've taken over the last few months.
Yes, we've launched our website, which has been a huge success. We've had several people get in touch with us, email and that sort of stuff. We've also done a little bit of filming for Dutch TV, which hence quite a few victims come forward over there. The first victims actually come out after watching our programme, which is obviously similar to what happened here. In the next couple of weeks, we're doing a bit of filming for French television as well. We also do like player supports where we've been to Bristol City and Wolverhampton Wanderers, watch the game, and they've given us a bit of hospitality, and all of us can all come together and support one another. It's quite reassuring, really.
You mentioned the website, so talk about that if listeners want to go to that and get involved. And obviously, you're on prolific on social media as well.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think we've got nearly since I think it was November. We've got over 12,000 followers already on Twitter, which is astonishing, really, for a charity. Not charity, an organisation like the Offside Trust. We've had over 100 people get in touch with us as well since the Offside Trust began. People who've suffered. So you can see, the demand is out there. So, we want to be there to help other victims come forward as well. And also, we want to improve the standards of safeguarding within football now. We've had various safeguarding officers contact the Offside Trust saying, they think there's a shortfall here, there's a shortfall there. And as a matter of fact, today we've had the first Premiership club, Everton, have formally endorsed that they're going to work with the Offside Trust, join forces with them, and combine efforts in order to keep our kids safe. So we're looking to work with Everton in some sort of partnership, which is fantastic for us because they are the pinnacle of the safeguarding world, really, in football.
That must be significant news, right? Because you sign up a big Premier League club, then others will follow suit, we hope.
Well, let's hope so. Say like Everton are the flagship. They've got 4 full-time members of staff just on safeguarding. So
have they really? Wow.
Yeah, they take it seriously. We've been there and met them and see how they operate, and it'd be an honour and a pleasure to work alongside the likes of Everton, really.
So, Steve, let's plug the game one more time, because tickets, of course, so you can get them from the website?
They're going to be on sale this week. You can get in trust... is it Offside Trust at wolflive.com? You can get your tickets off there, or you can contact, or they'll be on our website later this week as well. So anybody who wants to get in touch, you can either get in touch with on social media or on the website.
And Twitter will have details as well. That's at Offside Trust, if you want to follow on Twitter and find out information about the game. You're looking for prizes as well, because there's going to be a raffle and an auction. So the notes I've got here, lots of prizes, big and small, doesn't matter what the size of it, it's going to raise a bit of money, signed shirts, all that kind of stuff. So get involved with the cause, get behind Steve and what everybody is doing at the Offside Trust. Steve, great to chat to you. Congratulations on how far you've got with it, and best of luck with the game.
Okay, thanks for having me on the show. Thank you, guys. Take care.
That's a pleasure. Steve Walters, Offside Trust, from the Offside Trust, at Offside Trust, is how to follow them on Twitter.
He was a super player, by the way. What a good player he was.
Was he?
Yeah, he was Lilleshall, England, all the way through. He got a horrible blood disorder while he played. I think he was the youngest player ever to play for Crewe. Maybe Dean, maybe him or Dean. I can't remember, but you know, kind of we were talking earlier about the players that could have gone on and on. He was one, unfortunately. But yeah, he's doing a lot of great work at the moment. Really good.
Well, Daddy's involved in that game, 20th of August, Curzon Ashton Football Club in support of the Offside Trust. Monday night kickoff here on TalkSport.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide.
He gets to it. Oh, my goodness me.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
20 gig phone contract. Seemed a good idea at the time. But 6 months later, you're barely using any of it. And your contract means you're stuck paying for it month after month. Say it's not so. But say there was a new mobile company, one that gives you the freedom to change your mix of data, calls, and texts each and every month. Well, say hello to Sky Mobile. Sky. Believe in better.
Minimum term of 12 months. Upgrades effective immediately. Downgrades are effective from the following month. For full terms, go to sky.com/mobile.
There's another radio station you can listen to that's not Talk Sport, called Talk Radio. The station you can listen to which won't ruin your appetite for Talk Sport. Talk Radio. Listen to it.
This June, if you test drive the Qashqai, Duke or X-Trail, Nissan will give you an extra £650 off. That's up to a massive £2,900 on a Qashqai at only 4.99% APR representative. Yes, Nissan will give you money off, just for test driving our best-selling crossover range. I know it sounds unlikely, but that's what it says here in this script. I haven't read it wrong. I'm a properly trained actor. I've done Shakespeare and telly and hundreds of voiceovers. Search Nissan offers if you don't believe me. Nissan. Innovation that excites. Nissan Finance. 4.99% APR representative. Offer excludes Visia grade. Subject to status over 18s. Order and register before the 2nd of July from participating dealers only. T's and C's at nissan.co.uk.
The Sports Bar with Andy Goldstein and Jason Cundy on Talk Sports.
Get a pickled egg, some pork scratchings and a punch-up by the pool table. In the tasty local battle cruiser, where you get 2 Cockney loudmouths for the price of 1.
The usual, is it, sir? 2 Nelsons and a packet of Jelly Hill flavoured crisps.
Cool, blimey. I love a duck, governor.
It's time, gentlemen, please, to listen to the Sports Bar.
Open for business tonight from 10 on Talk Sports.
Follow every kick of the beautiful game. They've done it! Kick-off on Talk Sport.
It is Monday Night Kickoff here on TalkSport. Danny Murphy, Matt Etherington with me, Nat Coombs, till 10 o'clock when the Sports Bar takes over, of course. So we're going to wrap things up tonight by looking at some of the big stories doing the rounds at the moment. Let's start with the Eden Hazard news that broke earlier today. Specifically, he's going to have an operation. He's going to be out for 3 months after that ankle op. And not just that, but he was, I think it's fair to say, quite ambivalent, or at least non-committal about where he sees his future. And you can read a lot into those comments and statements to the media. But I'm interested in both of your perspectives on Hazard in terms of where you think he might end up next. Do you think there's a reasonable chance that he might be considering, given the form he's been in, leaving Chelsea and moving on, Danny?
Yeah. I mean, the injuries put a right blow to that if he was thinking of going, so I'm not sure you're going to sign someone while... saying that, he walked off. I mean, they said he when they say broken, it's a crack, obviously he had a crack, so he walked off, didn't he? Still classed as a break, but, you know, what is it? What they're talking about, what?
3 months?
10, 12 weeks, something like that, which, you know, isn't...
It's like pre-season, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's a sensational footballer. He's got that unbelievable low sense of gravity, the ability to move with the ball at pace. You know, and obviously what he's done this year, he's added goals and assists to his game, which he didn't quite get last year when he was having a bit of an off season. But there's not many teams in the world that he wouldn't make better. I suppose you could argue at Madrid with Bale.
That's what I was going to say. Where does he get in at Madrid?
Yeah, with Bale, Ronaldo, and
Isco,
Benzema as a 3, and Isco on the sideline. I mean, I've haven't heard of Isco all day long, but
would you?
Yeah, I think so. When you look at match-winning performances in big games and stuff, but you know, I don't think Bale's going to be in Spain all his career. I don't think Ronaldo will go on as long as he thinks. You know, I think Hazard will end up at Madrid when you take into consideration what Madrid have said about him, what he said about Zidane, and actually his interview. To be fair to him, What do you want from players? Do you want some honesty?
Yeah.
I do. I mean, he doesn't know for sure he's going to be at Chelsea next year in 2 years, because if Madrid come in with a stupid offer and Conte wants him out, he's gone, isn't he?
Sure.
Or vice versa. If they don't and he signs a new 5-year on super duper dough and he stays, I mean, it's just being honest. I don't think he does know exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that totally. I guess that there's an expectation that you know that the media are going to read into comments, so it's best to straight bat it. But even, if that isn't being straightforward.
But he did say I'm a Chelsea player for now. I'm concentrating on getting fit. If he'd have turned around and gone, I am 100% staying at Chelsea, and then he goes to Madrid in 3 months,
He'd be crucified for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Griezmann is a player we talked about on last Monday's show, Danny, and at the time it seemed to be leaning towards staying at Atleti, and that was confirmed, of course, not least because of the transfer ban that they've got in place. So he feels it would be the wrong thing to do to walk out on them right now, because they can't. They can bring players in, but they can't play them until January. So Griezmann stays. That puts Lacazette potentially back in play, because he looked like he was going there. Can you see Lacazette coming to the Premier League?
I mean, yeah, why not? I think they're different players. I mean, Lacazette's more of a striker. Griezmann's more of a 10 for me. The argument we were having is, where would Griezmann play in United's team, the way Mourinho sets up?
Yeah.
But in terms of,
Lacazette looked likely to go to Atleti. Now, he did, he's not. And they're quite good mates as well. Now that deal doesn't look like it's going to happen. Suddenly, a number of the Arsenal amongst them, of course, have been looking at it for a long time. Their radar's up again. They're looking at Lacazette again.
Well, there's no reason why he couldn't succeed in our league with the assets he's got. And everyone's always after a good striker, aren't they? Yeah, definitely. I mean, why not? I could see him coming for sure.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's very good, and I think he would suit. Danny's talking about Griezmann and where he'd fit in at United. I think he would suit United a lot better than what Griezmann would. Griezmann's a fantastic player, but like Danny said, with the way Mourinho sets up, I think Lacazette playing at the number 9 would suit them. Obviously, Arsenal will be in for a striker as well. That could be an option. They're talking about Mbappe as well. But will Arsenal go out there and get these players in the summer, because they certainly need it now? Wenger's signed a new contract.
Well, there are rumours doing the round that today that the RMC Sport amongst them have reported that Real have gone back in for Mbappe with a bid of 135 million. Monaco, who sold Bernardo Silva already, of course, and a lot of teams in for a number of their other players, Benjamin Mendy as well. They had such a great season, that's inevitably going to happen. But they don't need to sell everybody, and a lot of European experts are saying that Mbappe might be better off having another year at Monaco and then going next summer.
I think so. He's sensational in the Champions League and the league last season. Really like him as a player. Very, very quick to score a goal. Got an eye for a goal. Fantastic finisher. I think he's only going to get better, isn't he? And I think a year at Monaco could do him more good than anything else. But the way he played last season, those big clubs are coming calling. There's no doubt about that. And if Real Madrid do bid 135 million, then I don't think they're going to turn it down, are they?
And he wouldn't not play. He'd play. I think.
Yeah.
I think with him, he's quite. I mean, he is exceptional. We've only seen him briefly. Well, I say briefly, a few games, but he does look a super talent. And there is sometimes this perception that you can move too early, but actually, no. I think when you're that good,
he's ready.
Michael Owen was 18, taking on the world. Liverpool and England, and Rooney was doing it, and. You think a lot of the best players down the years started young and just
wouldn't harm him staying at Monaco for an extra year.
No, it wouldn't harm him.
No,
but
I know what you mean.
But also, as the player, you're playing in Monaco in front of 6,000 every week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's average league. He's got to be desperate to get out. Hasn't he?
But
he's put himself in the shop window now, going, "Look, I'm here. Come and get me." You're not going to turn it down. Someone said to me once, and never, you'd be fine another year there, blah blah blah. They might not come calling again if he does his cruciate and can't get back banging him in for another 12 months.
Yeah, sure. And I guess the Monaco team has achieved so much and now is getting disassembled that might be the right time to go if other players are out the door. World Cup year, of course, which is a significant part of this in terms of players considering where they're going to go. And that a point you alluded to, Danny, that you've got to be thinking, if you've got serious intentions of being in a World Cup squad, am I going to be playing every week when you look at that move?
Irrelevant of World Cup and international football, that should be your first thing anyway. When I say first thing. When I moved from Crewe to Liverpool, I'm not thinking I'm going to walk in the first team, but I'm 19, 20, going to the club I love, thinking I'm believing in myself that I will get in there at some point. Now, when you're being talked about £100 million player, or you're Griezmann, or you're anybody who is at the top of your tree, even at a young age, like Mbappe looks like he is, you've got to be looking, going, where am I going to go and play? So if Madrid are in for him, Arsenal are in for him, and United, and Arsenal and United, you know, Wenger and Mourinho say to him, you're going to play. And Madrid say, you're going to sit on the bench for a year, just watch and learn and blah, blah, blah. I'm not personally going to go and sit on the bench for a year. It's different if he fancies Madrid and he thinks I'll stay at Monaco. But if I'm going, if United are saying to me, you're going to play and be our number 9, and Madrid are saying you're going to sit on the bench, I'm going United. Because I want to play. And when you're young, you want to play, don't you? Because you're going to get the money.
Yeah.
You've got to have that self-belief. It's a difficult one, isn't there? A number of players, I mean, particularly in recent years, players that have gone, to City, and Fabian Delph, I'm thinking of in particular, who have...
But that's different, sorry. That's a different example, because he wasn't young. And he's not been on a lot of money all his career. He's been at Leeds. It's only at Villa where he really kicked on.
Sure.
And he's gone to City, which he verbally said, to secure him and his family for the rest of his life.
But he's got to be thinking as well, I can get... Or are you suggesting that he went there thinking, I'm going to be a squad player and I'm comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Correct. As opposed to, I've got a decent shot of being a regular first team. So, okay.
Massive injury problems as well, very different. When you're talking about Rodwell, when you're talking about Sinclair, fine, same example.
Yeah, okay.
Young lads who think they can go to City, but they didn't play.
Fair shout, but they wanted to. So that's a tough call, isn't it? It's a fair shout. So a player like that, Rodwell's a good call. You got to have that amount of belief in yourself.
Well, if he's going to Real Madrid for 135 million, he's got to think to himself he's going to play.
Yeah, and if they're spending that amount of money, he's going to play.
Yeah, and obviously he's got every right to have confidence in himself to play as well. So if I was him, I'd go Real Madrid.
I think the point you make is right generally. You know, you've got to sit and go when Rodwell or Sinclair, you know, it is financial as well, even at a young age.
Sure.
You know, you're looking at massive contracts, which if people say shouldn't matter, it does. I mean, but a lot of players do go. I mean, remember Franny Jeffers, who I played? He was one of the best young strikers. His movement, finishing.
I played with him.
I played with him. It was like he's one of the easiest. He probably is the easiest striker I've ever played in terms of his movement. It's just unbelievable. He moved to Arsenal for 11 million from Everton. He hadn't even played a full season. It's too early. You know what I mean? Not even a full season. And then he's up against Bergkamp, Henry, and does his ankle, and blah, blah, blah. And obviously, it's a mountain to climb then. So you have to be really careful. It could have gone the other way, of course, don't get me wrong. But I think, again, we're going back to the same points. Support network, good advice from family and friends, agent, whoever it may be. Just giving you the picture. Because I tell you what, when you're 19, 20, 21, you don't have a picture, really.
You don't, no. All you want to do is play football. You're not thinking about 10, 15 years down the line, are you? And what you might have, what you might not have.
Well, also, you think you can go and play in anyone's team, don't you?
Of course, yeah.
And actually, you might not be able to.
Let's bring it all together then. Out of everything we've spoken about and that support network that you need and the guidance and advice, not just of people close to you, but people in the game close to you, people that have been there and done that as you two have. What do you think needs to change to increase the street smart education for footballers? And is there anything that can be done that players are going to listen to when they're 17, 18, 19 and have the world at their feet?
Well, there's no guarantees, but I think the more workshops, if you like was a good word, the more seminars, classes, the more players get round, people who know what they're talking about, and ex-players as well can contribute in that massively, at least gives them a better chance. Because if you're giving if you're taking information on, some of it you might retain. You're never going to retain all of it.
Sure.
I didn't get the information, the help. I just got a couple of senior players saying you should do A, B, and C. I wish I had more. And focus less on the academic 1 day a week, 2 day a week, trying to get... Because if you fail at football, you can go back to uni and do your A-levels. I mean, some players can't do it anyway. Social skills, being out, money, advisors, agents. This is what's going to happen. This is how the process works. Open your eyes, blah, blah, blah. Just some more of that. I mean, you can't have too much, can you?
Is that the club's responsibility, Matt, to whenever they sign a player, to have all of that locked down in place?
I think so, without a doubt. And I didn't mention it earlier, but I've been to West Ham and Peterborough under-18s, 21s, and spoke to them about the mistakes that I made, and specifically my gambling as well, how I got into it, etc. And it was really well received. So I think I'd be happy to do more of that. I didn't want any money for it or anything like that. I just went in and spoke to the academy director there.
Why not?
Yeah, you know,
they pay someone else to come in and talk about.
But I enjoyed doing it, and I think it was really well received from the players, and I'll definitely do it again.
Terrific stuff. The last 3 hours have just absolutely flown by. Danny, Matt, many thanks indeed for all your insight.
Cheers.
Really interesting chat. And thanks to all of our guests that we had on the show this evening. All of you got in touch as well with your tweets and your texts and your questions. Don't forget, on TalkSport Live, cricket, a lot of cricket on TalkSport this summer. England-New Zealand is live from Cardiff tomorrow, straight after the breakfast. Danny Kelly and Mickey Quinn with the Sports Breakfast, and then Sags and the team live from Cardiff, England versus New Zealand. So enjoy that. The Lions over on TalkSport 2 on Wednesday morning as well, 7 a.m. Quick plug for that one. But from the three of us, we're out of here. The Sports Bar is next.
My Sporting Life, defining moments from TalkSport.
Harry Redknapp. On the Tuesday morning, I signed Canu. He comes to the training ground. I said, where have you been playing? You know, he was at West Brom the year before, got released on a free. I said, have you been training? How fit are you? Yeah, he said, I've been doing some training. I said, what do you do? He said, some days I go for a jog around the park. I thought, I'm sure you do. Now, I want him to play on the Saturday. This is the Tuesday. He hasn't played all pre-season. So we have a reserve game that afternoon. I put him in the reserve game. He plays half a game, scores a wonder goal in the reserves. Saturday, I put him on the bench. We played Blackburn at home, first game of the season, who under Mark Hughes were a very good team. Todorov plays first half, has to come off half time because of his injury, can't get 90 minutes out of him. I bring Canu on. He hasn't kicked the ball down really in anger, half a game in the reserves, hasn't trained for 3 or 4 months. Comes on, scores 2 goals and misses a penalty. On the Monday night, and that's the Saturday, Monday night we go to Middlesbrough, beat Middlesbrough 4 at Middlesbrough. Canu gets another couple of goals, runs from the halfway line for one of them. Coming home, we're at the airport. He's sitting in a chair. Suddenly he can't get up. His body's gone into whatever it goes
Spasm,
into.
yeah.
We have to lift him, put him in a wheelchair, wheel him to his car, lift him into the passenger seat, and the physio has to drive him home.
Legends of sport recall their major achievements with Danny Kelly. My Sporting Life on TalkSport. The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2.
Hear all the action from Paris as the world's best tennis players go head-to-head at Roland Garros.
Right up on the baseline to receive, which he does on the forehand. Then he goes wide.
He gets to it. Oh, my goodness me.
The French Open live tomorrow afternoon from 1 over on TalkSport 2. On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. TalkSport.
Next up, it's of course the first sports bar of the week. We've got loads coming your way. We're beginning. This will be interesting, actually. The under-21 England squad has just been announced. No players that are eligible for it are in it if they're in the full national side. The players I'm referring to are Rashford, Sterling and Dele Alli. Should they be in the under-21 squad if they are eligible? I say a big fat yes. Imagine Marcus Rashford coming back with a golden boot. Imagine Sterling, Alli and Rashford coming back with winners' medals. Right, the only games they will miss at the full side is the Scotland game, which is a sort of friendly, and the France game, which is a friendly. I mean, really? 08717223344. We've got lots coming up in tonight's show. That, and also a bit of Sports Bar Swap Shop with a great offer up for swappage tonight. Back pages in every hour, and just about everything and anything connected to the European world of transfer markets. That and loads more, but we will begin with should those three, Rashford, Sterling and Ali, all be included in the under-21s. Get involved. 08717223344. That and loads more, all coming your way after the 10 o'clock news and sport headlines. It's Craig Wakeling.
Thank you very much, Andy. Good evening. More details emerge about the London attackers, and in sport, it's bad news for Chelsea.
Talk Sport.
Police have named 2 of the 3 men who carried out the terror attack in London on Saturday night. One of them, 27-year-old Pakistani-born Karam Butt, was known to police and MI5 and had even appeared in a documentary called The Jihadi Next Door. His neighbour, Michael Membo, says he was a big part of the community, although concerns were raised.
What we noticed is that he was speaking to the kids. He was speaking to the kids about you know, his views, and the kids were saying, you know, the kids were reporting to their parents.
The Prime Minister's defending her record on police funding in the wake of Saturday night's terror attack, in which 7 people died. Theresa May has been criticised by political rivals over cuts in the number of officers in England. Figures show the total's fallen by 19,000 since 2010. Well, the Prime Minister says her party has defended counter-terrorism policing and increased the number of armed officers and given police more powers. The former Newcastle midfielder Cech Tiote has died at the age of 30. He collapsed during a training session with his club Beijing Enterprises. The Ivorian spent 7 years in the northeast before moving to China at the beginning of this year. Former teammate Rob Elliott paid tribute, calling him an absolute warrior, and recently Paul Dummett says he was a really nice guy. And finally, Peter Sallis, who was the voice of Wallace in the animated Wallace and Gromit films, has died aged 96. He also starred in the long-running sitcom Last of the Summer Wine.
Talk Sport weather.
With ATS Euromaster. Relax. With convenient online booking for your MOT, you're in good hands.
Rain for most of the country overnight. It'll be quite windy as well. Lows of 9 degrees Celsius.
Talk Sport. Sports update.
It'll be a completely different British and Irish Lions rugby union team for their second match of the Tour of New Zealand on Wednesday. The head coach Warren Gatland made 15 changes for the match against the Blues in Auckland. Wales hooker Ken Owens has been named as captain. Gatland says everyone's on trial for the opening match with the All Blacks.
The plan always was to, I said, give everyone a start in the first 3 games and give everyone an opportunity, and then start thinking about perhaps towards the Maoris game, looking at a couple of combinations that might be what you're looking at for the first test.
The Chelsea winger Eden Hazard will miss the start of next season after having surgery on a broken ankle. The Premier League champions say the operation was a success and they expect him to be back in training ground in around 3 months. He was injured while preparing with Belgium for an upcoming World Cup qualifier. England are through to the semi-finals of the Under-20s World Cup for the first time in 24 years. They beat Mexico 1-0 in their last 8 tie in South Korea. Dominic Solanke scoring the only goal of the game. They'll now face Italy on Thursday. Australia's cricketers have again been forced to settle for a point after their Champions Trophy game with Bangladesh was rained off. They were cruising towards their target of 183 at the Oval on 83 for 1 when the weather ruined the match. Finally, Andy Murray will face Kei Nishikori in the quarter-finals at the French Open. The world #1 beat Russia's Karen Khachanov in straight sets at Roland Garros. We've got live commentary of England's next ICC Champions Trophy match, which is tomorrow. They take on New Zealand. Latest, it's on the website, talksport.com.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM, the Sports Bar on Talk Sport.
All right, fans, here we go with the main event of the evening.
Hello, my friends. Good evening to you. Happy Monday, and welcome to another Andy Goldstein Sports Bar with me, Andy Goldstein. Of course, him over there, fun boy, the duck lover, Jason Punty.
Has anyone seen this?
Still on the missing list. Huge show tonight. Cough over the opening candy.
The thing's not working here. Though.
You're not working.
Hey, my cough button ain't.
Huge show tonight begins with your views on the England Under-21 squad as it has just been announced. And the question, should players that have played for the full national side be included in it if they are eligible? Rashford, Sterling and Ali all tick that box. So surely they should all be going. Imagine them coming back with winners' medals. That could only benefit them, can't it? 08717 223344. That's the number for you to dial so you can have your say live on national radio.
Also coming up between now and 1 AM, we'll have back pages in every hour. Mark London. European football. We'll have Lions news. Oh, yeah, mate. Sort of down under. And, of course, Monday just would not be Mondays without a little bit of Sports Bar Swap Shop.
It's the only sports show on National Radio. Take your calls Monday, Friday from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. It's Andy Goldstein's Sports Bar. It's the only show where for 3 hours on TalkSport, you, along with us, have no idea what's coming up. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. How are you, the fun boy?
I'm good, thanks. Very well indeed. Fine.
You have a good weekend?
Have a good weekend. Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, I did. Relatively.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, dreadful
horrific
news. I mean, my God. I mean, just like most people, I'm guessing, that would have watched the Champions League final, and then less than 20 minutes later, it's all
it was filtering through via the alerts that I've got on social media. And it's just appalling. It really is. Sign of the times, I'm afraid. Sign of the times.
And then, of course, met with the very sad news today. Check Kyoto.
Yes, I mean,
goodness, what's happening? What's happening in the world?
Well, I mean, he's born in '86. I was 16.
30 years
It's like, my God, how is that? I mean, there's been a number of those type of things. I don't know whether it's because we're far. They may have happened 30 years ago, but I don't remember them happening. And certainly at not the rate, but it just seems like there's a lot of them. Mark Vivian Foe, I remember him collapsed and died. Of course, Fabrice Mwamba. I mean, thankfully he was
saved a while.
There's been a number of who knows what and why, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people at very high up that can make a big effect and work out what's happening. How can that happen to such a fit young man? Dreadfully sad news. I mean, it just again.
We'll be talking about that a bit later on. Our blogger tonight, for obvious reasons, is a Newcastle blogger, so we'll be talking about that. But yeah, as Jason said, I mean, it's what's been said has been said about it all throughout the day since the sad news broke. You can't really say any more, but we will, of course, be touching on it later on, and rightly so as well. Let's begin, the fun boy, with... I'm quite excited about our topic tonight because what happens is we get in, we have a chat about the big sporting stories from the day, and then we were going to talk about Liverpool. We'll still talk about that a bit later on, and the fact that it looks like they might be getting Virgil van Dijk for... 50 or 60 million pounds, but in today's market, that's sort of your normal rate for a very, very good international defender.
There's a number of teams looking at him, that's for sure.
And I'm quite surprised. I mean, well done, Liverpool, if he goes there. Congratulations to them.
Big coup, if they can get that one over the line.
So we will be talking about that a bit later on, but what we're going to start with is sort of breaking news. Happened about half an hour ago, and we thought we'll touch on it, because as soon as it came out, Jason said something, and I went, no. And then he went, right. Well, Pat Albert's went, right, that's what we do tonight. So the England under-21 squad has recently been made or named, and it doesn't include Marcus Rashford, it doesn't include Dele Alli, and it doesn't include Raheem Sterling. These are all players that are eligible for it, but the only reason, of course, they're not in it is because they are, I wouldn't say permanent fixtures in the first 11 of the national side, but certainly permanent fixtures in the squad, the full national squad. Now, I was saying to Jay outside that they should all be playing. They should all be going with England to the under-21 Euros, right? Without any shadow of a doubt. There is not a doubt in my mind that suggests that those three players and their clubs actually wouldn't benefit if they were part of that England squad. And also, Jay, they have a chance to come back with winners' medals. And it gives the other England players more of a chance. And I just think, what would that do for them mentally? What would it do for their confidence? What would it do for all the other players involved? And someone like Marcus Rashford, who is not a permanent fixture yet in either Manchester United's first 11 or England's first 11, he could come back with not only a winner's medal, but a golden boot. I don't see a negative in it. There are only two games that any of these players would miss, and that would be the game against Scotland, where let's be, no disrespect to Scotland, England should not lose that game if those three players are not even part of it. And the other game is against France, which is a friendly, so a meaningless game. And what would Marcus Rashford learn from 30 minutes, or any of them, Raheem Sterling or Dele Alli, from 30 minutes in that game? I can't see one argument as to why these three players shouldn't be included in it.
Well, first, let's go through them. Let's start off with Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling has completely and utterly outgrown the under-21s. He has moved on at some rate. He was started, of course, in the World Cup under Roy Hodgson, the disaster the Euros. Why does he now, 2 years after that, 12 months after that, but he was very much part of the squad. And I think it was the World Cup as well, actually. He was out there. That's right, he was. So why would he, 2 years later, 3 years
would
later,
he not, though?
But how is that going to benefit him? We've got to think about the players, not just about the team. How does it benefit Dele Alli, who's now one of the first names on the team sheet for Southgate? Why does he now have to go and prove himself at this level?
I've got an easy
answer. Beneath him.
I've got an easy answer. Remind me and our listeners what happened at the last tournament for England.
Which one?
The last tournament for England.
What, the main one?
Yeah.
We were put.
Right.
Yeah.
How will a player coming out of that squad, a young player, how will he feel? What experience will he have? Positive or negative?
Well, out of what?
out of being so poor in a major tournament for England.
Well, they're young enough to move on.
Yeah, but it'll be negative. Imagine reversing.
But they're young enough to move on.
Imagine Marcus Rashford, Dele Alli, or Raheem Sterling representing the full national side with a winner's medal in their back pocket.
Playing with players that aren't good enough.
What do you mean that aren't good enough? They're good enough for the under-21s.
But they're not good enough to play at the level these boys have already reached.
Oh, so what's that got to do with it?
Well, you're stepping down in class. How's that helping anyone?
What about when Ronaldo plays for Portugal? No one in that team's good enough to play with him.
But he's full international. We're talking about under-21s here. It's a totally different level.
It doesn't matter. You look at other players that don't. Neymar played in the Olympics. Was that beneath him?
Well, in my opinion. What do you mean Neymar played in the Olympics? What age was this?
The last Olympics.
Yeah.
Scored the goal, scored the winning penalty.
So that's fine. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, but the players that were surrounding him weren't good enough to lace his boots, you could argue, some of them.
Yeah, but was he a first-team regular for Brazil?
Of course he was. First team, yeah, without a doubt.
What year?
The last Olympics.
Just gone?
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe that's helped him. I don't believe that's helping him.
Well, you didn't know that. You never once said to me, what's your name, Art? I'll tell you why he's put. Because he played at the Olympics.
No, but name another one. That's one example. I'm not saying players don't do it. For me, I don't think it helps these players.
Okay. Let's just look at the England squad, the under-21s, right? People like Tammy Abraham.